Nishant. I work with Integrated Strategy Development Team at Pi-Square Technologies, an automotive embedded software engineering company. I'll be with you for the rest of the day, where we shall get exposure and insights on other pivot areas where generative AI holds the future. Healthcare is such an area. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as we have the privilege of requesting our keynote speaker, Dr. G.V. Rao, to come on the stage and share insights on artificial intelligence in gastrosciences. Dr. G.V. Rao is Director, Chief of Surgical Gastroenterology, MIS, GI Oncology, and Transplantation Services at AIG Hospitals. He is one of the few surgeons in the world with enormous experience in both minimally invasive endoscopy and laparoscopic surgeries, with over 20,000 complex gastrointestinal surgeries and around 18,000 endoscopic procedures to his credit. He was awarded the Outstanding Young Person Award by JC International and is the recipient of the Government of India Parliament Gold Medal for his outstanding contribution to the field of gastroenterology. Sir, privileged to have you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At the outset, let me thank the entire IESA and the executive committee of IESA and all the people sitting here for the honor of this podium this afternoon. The question that is asked is, why am I talking about artificial intelligence? I am not as naturally intelligent as Albert Einstein. Neither I am as artificially intelligent as John McCarthy. I have a processing speed which is limited. This is the natural intelligence. And I also know my limitations based on this Fenn effect, which shows that with ages, the next generation always has a better IQ. But I also realize the Fenn effect, which shows that with aging, my intelligence goes down. So I have to depend on somebody else to make decisions. That is the reason why I'm standing here to talk about artificial intelligence, basically because the limitations that I have as in today on the clinical side. So we keep thinking that our intelligent or decision making keeps going with age, but surprisingly we have a lot of data to show that it gets plateaued after some time. Now what I am trying to do is add artificial intelligence to my practice so that I can be on par with anybody here to take decisions. That's the reason why I am interested in artificial intelligence as a clinician. And I want to think like a clinician, but also think and act rationally at the end of the procedure. Why am I talking? Because I'm a gastrophysician, I'm a gastrosurgeon basically. My entire talk will be based on some literature that is based on the diseases concerned with gastroenterology. Now, all of you know that it's an enigmatic disease pattern, huge disease pattern. The disease understanding is still evolving. There are new technologies, interventions, drugs coming in every day into the market. There's variability of diagnosis and therapy. There are formidable endoscopic and surgical interventions which are evolving every day, and all of them are associated some amount of morbidity and mortality. I'm disclosing all the vaccine things that happen on the medical side. You may not listen to all this when you see the doctor right up front. So there are several, even today, 2023, we have several challenges in diagnosis. Not because we are incapable, basically because of a lot of things available in the market, choosing appropriate therapy, determining how they respond to the therapy, and predicting how these patients respond to this particular type of drugs. So natural intelligence is actually, as in today, supported by equations. Basically, we have a huge heterogeneous patient population, huge data that is coming up from newer modalities of imaging, labs, basic research. analyzing these things is very, very time consuming. And there is variable reporting and intra-observer. The same report, the same slide you show it to two different people, they may have two different diagnoses. And the management protocol seems to vary from place to place, center to center. So the natural intelligence predictive equations that we have today in clinical practice, they yield acceptable estimations in only half the patients. The rest of the thing we have to depend on natural intelligence to make sure what is best for the patient. So this is a very provocative statement I'm making, that gastrosciences seems to defy natural intelligence to equations-based management as in today. It is likely that we could be an algorithm-based management tomorrow. And can artificial intelligence overcome the challenges that we have in clinical practice today? We take help of all this, computer vision, natural language, machine learning, and it has got several applications, basically be it diagnosis of a disease, treatment prediction, recurrence, complications, and how to basically evolve on this, understand the disease per se. Every single thing that right from the time the patient walks into the thing, patient walks out of the hospital, we can have AI incorporated into the thing. And we have umpteen number of studies that are coming up on the medical side. If you see last 25 years, you see the number seems to be increasing every day about AI in medicine. And surprisingly, India seems to be number 3 in the number of publications that we have on the medical side. Huge number of publications we have coming up from India. Now we have, all of you know about, most of you, some of you would have got this endoscopy done. Endoscopy is a diagnosis, but basically it is subjective. The person who does it has to see the thing, report the thing. Or he picks up the tissue, send it for biopsy, and depends on the pathology. And in spite of this thing that you have high resolution endoscopes with everybody, ultimately the interpretation depends on the person who is checking the thing and not on the system. So as in today, we are still based on the person who interprets the images that you see. Like we have some of these technologies right now we have to see, we put the scope inside, we stain the thing inside, use different types of lights to pick up lesions which are not picked up on conventional white light. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the person standing in front of the mirror supposed to diagnose this or pick up these lesions, and this is a very, very rapidly growing specialty for diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up. Endoscopy is the biggest specialty that has ever happened, actually, and everything gets incorporated into the thing. Likewise, when we see this lesion on the endoscope, we pick up a piece for biopsy and send it to the pathologist to examine and tell us the diagnosis, because you cannot make a pathological diagnosis on table. Grossly, you can say this is this. It depends on the pathologist who puts it on the microscope and tells us this is benign or malignant. Again, there is a huge amount of variability between the pathologists reporting this, pathologist to pathologist, center to center, and there are very limited number of these pathologists available across who can accurately report this disease pattern. So now what we have come out is actually now endoscope is trying to evolve on this. So what we do is right now we have an endoscope which initially used to see. Now we take this endoscope, touch it onto the lesion, and it shows a microscopic image. So it's a microscope attached to the tip of the endoscope, which gives us a histopathological picture instead of a gross picture. So it's a microscope that is attached to the tip of the scope now. Now we have still depend on the pathologist. There could be some variations. If we have gone a step ahead, now we've incorporated artificial intelligence into this. Now this tells us whether this lesion is benign or malignant. So it tells us, So as in today, you touch the thing, it tells us whether this lesion that you're seeing is cancerous or non-cancerous. So as in today, still I cannot go by this and tell the patient that is cancer or not cancer, but it helps us in targeting biopsies. In the sense like that sometimes you take a biopsy comes negative. So this is helping us in targeting biopsies as in today, but ultimately we are still not dependent on this to make the final diagnosis. So, a lot of things that are picked up basically because of this, we are able to pick up lesions which are not picked up on conventional white light. And like pancreatic cancers, which are usually pick up very late, actually we have some models which are come into practice which you can pick up very early based on the data that we have getting in. Accuracy, sensitivity, specificity is very, very high of these things. And likewise in liver diseases, we are able to predict the fatty liver, the liver cancers, stones in the liver, all these we are able to predict better than what we are able to do with the equations that we have. Now what happens on the surgical side? Initially, whenever we used to do these endoscopy procedures, we used to use white light. Now surprisingly, now for the first ever time, we started using this yellow enhancement. The yellow color is enhanced on the system. Now you see the sheer difference between what happens on white light above and the yellow enhancement below. We are able to see structures better. We are able to see small vessels better, blood vessels better, and with the energy sources that you have, we can see this, the procedures become absolutely bloodless. Sheer difference because you're enhancing the yellow component in the thing by AI. Now you take a step further now. This is basically, I asked actually the Olympus company which made this big, they got this idea from, they quoted this movie Avatar. So for the first ever time, they bagged this idea from this movie, and they started enhancing the yellow color on laparoscopy side. Now what happens is, whenever we do surgery now, a lot of you must have talked about, you cut and join two pieces of intestine together. As in today, I go by my perception. It is good with the pink in color. But now subsequently, we have this technology called ICG, which came in, which shows us the end whether adequately perfused or vascular or not. Now, this is subjective again. So we have this ICG right now. And now we incorporate AI into this. Now it gives me the percentage of perfusion, whether this is perfused adequately or not. So the cut-end that I cut and join, if they're adequately perfused, it means the chance of this patient having any complications is less. So that is the importance of this. And now we do this 3D printing of the surgical procedures, like any liver tumor that we have. We have a 3D printed model of this even before this. This all happens behind the scenes. And we have this thing called as navigation surgery, where we integrate preoperative, intraoperative data. It is like running through these images that you see in these science fiction movies. Literally, you run through these images. And what we have is this AI. The theaters are now have these intraoperative sensors, cameras which are integrated. And now what happens is, this is the normal liver that looks like. But I'm operating on a model like this. So it is like a Google map that is superimposed on the liver. So I can avoid the major vessels. I can avoid the traffic. I can go in the leaf vascular area. I can see the lesion very clearly because I'm literally seeing through the liver into the thing. This is the inside view of the liver. This is the outside view of the liver. So you're integrating both these things together, so surgeries become safer, less amount of blood loss, and then the chances of these people getting cured is better. All of you must be talking about robotic surgery, current days clinical practice. Actually, people think that we just hand over the patient to the robo. Please, absolutely nonsensical thing, please. Robo doesn't perform surgery as on today. People come to us and tell us they want robotic surgery. They think we just hand over the patient to the robo and let the patient go. It's impossible, actually. See, in reality, it aids surgeons, actually. As in today, the amount of movement that the surgeons have is limited. When you have open surgery, when you go to laparoscopy, is limited. So here you have a good 360-degree maneuverability of the instrument. That is what is helping for better, not that we are handing over. But again, the first ever experiment where they have completely handed over the surgical procedure to the robo was done very recently. It was handed over completely but it was done in an experimental model to show that it is feasible to do this thing. We can program the whole thing. The entire surgery can be done before, program the thing and leave the robo to it, it can perform. So this is the first ever report that has recently come to show that a robo can perform independently if it is fed properly. These sort of pictures that surface on internet, people keep showing us these things, it's impossible. This is almost 2 or 3 decades away. I don't think we'll be able to do this as in today. But the biggest thing is actually, I don't know how many of you have seen this movie called, this is for the first ever time they've shown some procedure in space, remotely controlled by somebody on the Earth. People thought it was an absurd idea, but with a lot of people traveling to the space now, NASA has done the first ever surgery in a simulated environment just 2 months back. In the simulated NASA lab, they have done the first ever surgery remotely controlled by this. And these sort of pictures that we see, science fiction movies will certainly become a reality tomorrow because we are able to do this. Again, a lot of integration between the information that is required so that we are able to do these procedures very, very safely. So very well shown this, actually what was shown almost about 6 or 7 years back, but it seems to be becoming a reality as in today in clinical practice. But what has happened in the process was, we as surgeons started drifting away from the patient. When I was practicing, I was doing open surgery, I was right in touch with the patient. When I started switching over to laparoscopy, I moved away from the patient, I started controlling with the instruments. When we got robotic system, we started sitting away from the patient. You understand? So the physical contact with the patient seems to be growing, and we are dependent more and more on these machines to do these procedures. Again, a lot of you would have thought, actually, we operate these patients, give these patients post-operative nutrition. Surprisingly, there seems to be a lot of difference in what is actually required and what is given to the patients. Health-wise, we feel that Americas are better than Africas, but when you come to ICU nutrition, both Africas and Americas are same. Because there's some amount of discrepancy in how much of the thing. This is basically because, as in today, what we give to the patient is based on equations. Now we have this thing called, and we have every single alert in the ICU for me, right from the doctor to the nurse to the blood pressure, every single thing, but we don't have any alert for the nutrition of the patient as in today. So we have a thing called indirect calorimetry that has come right now, a big machine that has become very small now. Sports people use it very regularly to calculate the amount of calories they require. Now this has come into medical practice just 6 months back. Now when we try to compare what is actually required to what we are giving to the patient is almost 30% different. So if we have these measurements, we are able to better supplement this patient, and the morbidity of surgical procedures definitely comes down. This is the data pilot study from our own data to show that it is 30% deficient to the equations that we do. Again, all this last 3 decades or 4 decades of practice, this entire science seems to be very, very slow. Like this famous pitch star experiment that we keep talking on the medical side, the pitch star that is used to lay the roads, and they said that the experiment is to show whether it's solid or liquid. So they put this pitch star in an hourglass, and it almost takes 13 years for one drop to fall down, just to show the value that pitch star is liquid, not solid. Now, likewise, same thing happens if you follow these Bond movies. Beginning of this movie, this person is shown 10 or 15 gadgets. Every single movie, if you follow this, now this person picks up 1 or 2 gadgets from this, and the same thing is shown for the rest of the movie. That is what happens on the science. We are doing so many things, only 20% seem to be coming into clinical practice. 80% going down the dustbins. Billions of dollars wasted on this. Billions of dollars wasted on this. I'll give you a couple of examples what we have gone through. We made some stents for us actually. This was a mechanical stent that we made here, 2010. To incorporate electric current into that so that it can pierce, it took 10 years for us. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. So, you have this umpteen number of engineering specialties that you have. But for us, to stent from one part to the other part, it took 10 years for us. Just to incorporate electric current into that stent that we're using. And again, I'll show you a couple of examples. Fantastic Voyage movie, 1960s. Very good movie, shows that humans are miniaturized, injected into the blood vessel and do surgical procedures. Now we have this capsule endoscopy that came into clinical practice. In the sense, you swallow this capsule, it takes all the pictures and flushes out. But surprisingly, this capsule moves on its own. It doesn't rely on your commands. It moves by the intestinal paralysis. So we somehow wanted to control this actually. So this person, Paul Swain, who is the inventor of this capsule endoscopy, so he used a magnet. He swallowed the capsule himself, used a magnet to control this capsule within the body. So we have a magnet that is used to control this body, capsule movement in the body. Surprisingly, when we asked him where he got this idea from, he didn't say that he got this idea from his engineering counterpart, but he showed me this movie. He says, I got this idea from this. He didn't have a good engineer who can tell us that it can be moved using a magnet elsewhere. Surprising. In fact, he's his counterpart actually. Now, same thing happened to us in 2004. First ever time we showed that appendicectomy, which has done through a hole or through the incision, can be done through the mouth. This was the first ever thing that we showed way back in 2004, and we showed that this appendix that we do the thing through oral, without making a scar, you can get it out to the mouth. This is the first ever publication, first ever report that we have shown, and the Time magazine covered this, showing that it is going to be a big revolution in endoscopy. Surprisingly, there are a lot of limitations to this procedure, though it can be done technically, but we didn't have adequate resources. And people made mockery of us when we showed this. People thought that you're doing procedures like this, and people showed us that you require instruments like this, which have to be multiple instruments. And we, inspired by this movie which came here, that we showed the cyber kinetics for the first ever time, where one person can control multiple arms. So the single scope that we had now had multiple channels right now, and we worked with this company, and some amount of robotics were involved into the thing based on this lobster. And then we made this small, tiny little robots which can go through the endoscope and start doing these procedures. Now, surprisingly, and the end result was this. Now we have scopes like this, but still they're experimental. So 2004 we did this, 2023 we are here now, still I am not able to use this on humans today. And basically this entire bench to bedside translation that happens actually, you understand, you have a concept that is done on a bench, gets translated to clinical science. Now we need to have all these engineering specialties which have to come together. The AI in mechanical engineering cannot suffer separately from the AI in electronics. Unless and until all of them get integrated, the pace at which this is going to take off will be very, very slow. Otherwise, I keep working in my own domain, you keep working in your own domain, and we keep looking out for things of how to integrate all this thing. We personally feel, because out of sheer experience what we had actually, we feel that we have a concept actually, we should have everybody sit together to see how it can be managed. There's a lot of talk about empathy in this. Actually, you people have shown that you can show empathy in all these models that you have created. Artificially intelligent people have shown that you can create empathy. It can be shown that in that. But the biggest thing that we found helpful was this chat box, whether it's helpful in counseling the patient. Whenever we have a patient who is very sick, we keep counseling the patient over and over again. Some of you must have had this experience with doctors. Question 1, the doctor's answer. Question 2, okay. 10th question, okay. 15th question, okay. When it comes to 30th, 40th question, the tone of the doctor changes. But it doesn't happen with the Google map, the lady who directs us in the group. Umpteen number of times you take the thing, it doesn't change the tone. Umpteen number of times you take a divert tone, it doesn't change the tone. We feel that is going to be the biggest advantage for us for counseling patients, because it doesn't change and it's got a lot of data integrated in the thing. I'm absolutely fascinated by this chat box which counsels the patient. And of course, when I have a mob like this, we cannot dictate on artificial intelligence, but we have, can I have another 5 minutes, is okay? Shall I? No, the question that you usually ask is, will hospitals, government, even individual physicians purchase these things? Legally, who would be responsible for this? Not validated, lot of data. And what if your system crashes and the decisions are delayed? Actually, I sit in the thing, and what if the system crashes? And suppose I sit my outpatient, I can't tell the patient that I'll just go back, take the help of artificial intelligence, and come back and tell you what my diagnosis is. And my system can be hacked by my rival within the city, outside the city. All this can happen. And will clinicians become irrelevant? Absolutely no. I think we have to stick to the clinical side, and we have to have other people who can take the data for us and help in doing this data. And there are a lot of things that can be done if you integrate this into clinical science. So what we feel is actually, like the natural concept that we had, it has to go through. It is not that I can create an algorithm today and practice on patient. It has to go through the FD or the DCGI before I can get it incorporated in clinical practice. So there, as I said, actually, there are a lot of individual players who are creating, actually, small amount of them are getting translated because they're cheaper, faster. There are a lot of duplication of these algorithms because nobody is working in tandem. We need to work together so that everybody, we don't waste the money that we had. So I keep showing this movie on my medical side. We have different specialties on medical side, like you have engineering specialties on. And if you follow these movies, actually, all these are individual heroes. Each of them had their own signature techniques and technology. But over the period of time, each of them have their own limitations and acceptance, and people started refusing them. And if you see Marvel today, Marvel doesn't produce individual heroes. Marvel talks about Avengers now. They put everybody together to make sure that... So we also believe that actually we, doctors, engineers, have to come together to make sure that this translation is faster. And this is what I want to happen. Beautiful movie which shows actually, you just put the patient on the table, it diagnoses, treats, cures the patient. This is where we have standing as in today. I look forward to all of you working together with all the engineers and the artificially intelligent, naturally intelligent people to take this forward at a faster pace than what can happen. That only can happen if meetings like this come and exchange ideas. Thank you so much once again for the patient here. Any questions I can take. But sorry for this, I call this an item presentation. You know, any movie has got an item song or an item presentation. So I did this presentation, they said, so every meeting needs a break in the, you understand, you have a standards of this thing, so you need some break in the thing, in monotonous presentations. Any questions you have, I'll be glad to take otherwise. Thank you so much.
We need you on the stage. Now may I request Sri Venkata Simhadri ji to please come over and felicitate Dr. Rao.
Say one word before. I think they were all spellbound and they didn't know what to ask. So it's an amazing presentation. We really thank you for taking the time and coming here. I just want to say one word. See, we are all here designing this, very complex, most advanced chips, develop all these kind of software. But when we see how all this technology is used, especially in the medical field, to save the lives of people, it really, makes us happy. And we are very lucky to have you here today.
Thank you. Now let's zoom in our attention to the new vistas of academic research. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as now we have the privilege of requesting Dr. C.V. Jawahar as our keynote speaker. Dr. Jawahar is Professor of Computer Vision and Machine Learning at IIIT Hyderabad, and also the Dean R&D at the Institute. He leads the research group focusing on computer vision, machine learning, and multimedia systems. In the recent years, he has been actively involved in research questions that coverage smart mobility, Indian language computing, and multimodal perception. Professor Jawahar is an elected fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineers and the International Association of Pattern Recognition. Sir.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. Thank you for, first of all, inviting me to speak on this occasion. But I'm at very disadvantageous position. First of all, after a lunch, I'm not sure how many of you are awake. And now I'm speaking after an exceptionally brilliant talk and performance before. So, we are in an era where we believe that academicians have lost their job because the entire AI is being done by industry on supercomputers. Without computing, academicians cannot survive in this space. I believe that's not really true. We still have our cup of tea left out. For example, we speak about Gen AI. All of us speak about Gen AI, but honestly, none of us know what it is. So we have seen this like a systematic evolution of a lot of keywords coming into the picture, like what is AI or what is today's AI? Like it's all like a casually, loosely, like the terminology got modified, and there is a mystery around all of them, as if everything happened last 2 years. That's not really true. So if you look at the evolution, this entire thing on the left-hand side, which we were talking a few years back, when we were all students, we learned neural network. I think all these sort of neural networks were taught to us 25 years back, 30 years back in the textbooks. At least last 10 years plus, they were all in practice extensively everywhere. What changed? We were able to solve problems which we never thought in the past we will be able to solve, given the type of data that we had access to, given the compute that we had access to, and the new opportunities that came, and that the absorption of the technology into the real world. For example, we thought that Google Maps could provide all guidance in your life. We thought that Alexas and Siris could help you with everything in the world, isn't it? Why did we change that mind? We are saying, no, that's not going to happen. Now ChatGPT will do the job now. We have a new hero which we believe is going to solve all the problems. We have to be realistic what this is doing and what this can do and what will be the future. Now what happened on the right-hand side, you see something new beast came into the picture, transformers. This is not the transformers that electrical engineers know. The different beast transformer, this came into the story around 2017 or so. But what changed was the bottom, learn from the large data. In the past, we were learning heavily from human expertise. Human needs to say, what is this? And the machine learning algorithms or AI algorithms were learning with examples. And the cost was always about creating examples. Now we are talking about, is it possible to learn from raw data? We can just crawl the entire internet, and can you just learn from this? All the public knowledge that we have about a topic, about a theme, about a language, in a modality, and you just learn from this with no additional human supervision, and this has started to work. The word changed into LLM, isn't it? So we created this big transformer models, ChatGPTs, and what happened, if you look at the history here now, the first, one of the first success story in this space could be in Word2Vec or 2013, and 2018 we started to see the GPTs. And when ChatGPT came, that's why most of us actually started to see this as something existing. No? And look at the speed at which this is growing. Look at the players, as expected. The game of rich people, big models, lot of compute, and you can also see interesting patterns now, open source, closed source. Indeed, there are enough business models behind both these two. Now, this is not the end. As you can see, the way the speed at which evolves is clearly telling us what this will be. If you are, like as a researcher, we are all generally trained in extrapolating this. We make our cup of tea by drawing the upper half 2024-25, just extrapolating the graph. That naturally tell you where this trend is going to evolve and what we are going to see in the next few years, and that this is not the end of the Gen AI that we see. Now, I talked about this, to give you an example of what really happened, is Word2Vec example I mentioned. What really changed was, we started to see where we were not able to process text in the past. As a computing, like we know all the numbers, floating, real number, vectors, all of them we manage, but we were not really able to manage the text because we did not know how to add or subtract strings or names or characters or words. So what Word2Vec introduced was something very interesting. They brought this model of king minus queen is same as man versus woman. Oh, this was a big surprise for everybody. And what did they do was solve a simple pretext problem. So what they took a sentence, created a proxy task of predicting a word in the middle of a sentence. How they got rid of the human supervision. Take a sentence, erase a word, and ask to predict it. No extra human supervision is required. You just need to crawl only the data around the world available in any language that you want to work on. The conclusion is that, so this is where the smartness comes. If you are able to predict a missing word in a sentence, you understand the meaning of the sentence. This proxy task or a pretext task helped us building a word embedding or a representation for a word which you can manipulate just like the numbers that you do in our the mathematics. And that helped us building something. This was in 2013. Then when we moved to the GPTs, we successfully extended this by saying that, look, now we can do such pretext task, simple naive looking task on huge amount of data with no extra human supervision, lot of compute. It allows us to build models which can understand the text or the language or the large language model that we are talking about. You just replace the data available from one domain with another domain, you get it in that. You do that with Telugu data, you will get a Telugu LLM. The challenge is we don't have that much of Telugu digital text. The entire literature that we have, they are all in printed form. They are not in typed form which a computer can consume today. As a result, we still don't have anything that is useful for our languages. So if this is true, now you can, once you have such large models, now if you want to adapt this to, say, a specific domain, to a medical domain, it is easy because you need only a small amount of data in the respective domain to provide solutions in a specific domain. And this successfully worked. It went further. Say that you just should not say that, okay, what is a missing word? You should also give me explanations. You should have the capability to tell why something is working. You force the AI algorithms to provide some intermediate steps. Just like you don't give me a multiple choice answers, give me the steps. That improved the logical reasoning or the capability to explain. Nothing beyond. So when you moved from the words to the sentences, the pretext task remained the same. For example, give 3 sentences and tell me which order I should arrange them to make sense. Very simple, naive task. See, look at this is what is fundamentally going behind the super giant, super intelligent, large language model that we all consume, we are all surprised, we are all shocked. And it is not the first time this sort of generative techniques existing or generative techniques are getting used in text. So we are seeing this sort of things now with the GPTs and its variations. With the smartness is in now how do you harvest this and the text or the corpus, unlabeled corpus? How do you create this proxy task? How do you learn? And how do you adapt it to some chatbot or whatever the downstream task that you are interested in? And chatbot or the way chat, we are all excited is only one of the use cases. It is not the end. It is able to create the language. It's able to create the answer. So you may want it as an answer. You may want it to, if you want a human interface, you made a question and an answer. That's one way of consuming. Just like Google has made us like interface to a computer is search. We are not quite comfortable with that today. So it's a question, or Alexa has made you comfortable with the chatbot. Like it's a question of how that interface you are able to consume and how you are wed to that the model. Now, given this audience, there is no need of telling them where this is heading in terms of science. Say in size, huge models, and how do you want to implement it? There are plenty of, so you can see the trend, where it is heading. And you can start guessing where you are going to be in few years from now and what type of model you want to quantize, what type of model you want to compress, what type of model you want to put on a chip. And all these stories are going to continue. And but I want to come back to the main thread that I'm more interested is in, like, is this the end of it? No. Text was an entry point because we were working on a computer with a keyboard. Today that has changed. Your entry point to the digital world is becoming very often voice and even camera, picture. Voice has reached some level, so text is, well, we all bought that interfaces. Voice, up to some extent, we have started to buy. Picture, for most of us, still the camera is only taking family pictures. Beyond that, the type of interfaces are yet to come. So where this is going to lead is, this interface is going to be exactly multimodal. Maybe there are more modalities that will come. Maybe there are EEGs. Maybe I just think and the AI system is able to say brain waves, whatever it is, like all the interesting modalities could come today or tomorrow. But the method of how these modalities will get integrated and solve problem is now we have some grip on how this is heading. So if you want to look at the text I mentioned about how the text gets generated. So similarly, the people naturally, there is a parallel thread on how this sort of other modalities also get generated. And there are success stories like GANs and diffusion models that people talk about. The idea is very simple. If you are able to generate a noisy data from a noise-free data, we should be able to invert this process. AI algorithms or neural networks, if you ever know, there's an input, there's an output. If you know how to go from here to here, you should also know how to go from here to here. If we crack this problem, which we have practically cracked today, we know how to synthesize images and videos. And I want to show you some of the things that we did in between, like when we were trying to create this, the move from one end to the other. We looked at, is it possible to look at, say, the lip movement and the speech two very different modalities. One is a picture, one is a sound. Can I move from one modality to another modality? And how seamless is this? Here's an example. You play the sound. Can you?
Keine Angst vor dir. Ich weiß, dass du ein Feigling bist. Ich habe also entschieden.
Mi chiamo Tony Stark e non mi fai paura. So che sei un codardo. Perciò ho deciso.
So irrespective of the language, from a language you can go to the lip movement. Put words to the mouth. Because these two modalities, one relate to the other. So I'll show you the reverse. That's more interesting.
We've talked about the relationship between the wavelength, the frequency, and the speed of electromagnetic radiation. In fact, the product of the wavelength and the frequency is its speed.
I can just watch from here the people murmuring there and read. Of course, this is the capability to generate a natural looking generation from one modality. So let me show you an example now. What else you can do
Our
with
work opens up a major application in the domain of assistive technology. It can now provide
People
a
who
voice to
cannot create
those who have
sound
lost their ability to
can be
speak due to
helped
several
to create
types of
sound.
illness. Here is a patient suffering from ALS who can mouth words but cannot make sounds due to paralyzed vocal cords, speaking using our algorithm. Please note that it is impossible to collect speech data for such patients, and the fact our model works well on him indicates its robustness.
I am tired.
We hope such applications of lip-to-speech synthesis are popularized in due time, since they are non-invasive and cost-effective. Here are a couple of more examples of other deaf speakers.
Hello. My channel.
And the hope is this can be done with a simple camera and simple compute. Now, we also would like to create one of the real requirement for India is today the lack of digital content.
Das Gebiet der Computervision bewegt sich aufgrund des Aufkommens des tiefen Lernens sehr schnell.
Can you get
Zum
ambient
Beispiel
GPT
verwenden
in Telugu?
selbstfahrende Autos sie jetzt, um eine Vielzahl von Dingen zu erledigen.
So here's an example, one more example.
चलो हम जो ट्विटर के बारे में बात कर रहे थे उसी के आसपास मुझे लगता है कि इलॉन मस्क ने कुछ कड़वे शब्द बोले जिन्हें उन्होंने नहीं कहने चाहिए थे। तो बताओ, उम्मीद में और भाईचारे के नाम पर तुम्हें क्या लगता है कि इलॉन मस्क ट्विटर के साथ अच्छा क्या कर रहे हैं? और जैसे कि एक व्यक्ति जो काफ़ी समय से सोशल नेटवर्क्स जैसे कि फेसबुक, इंस्टाग्राम, व्हाट्सएप चला रहा है, उन्हें क्या बेहतर करना चाहिए? वो उस मूल्यवान टेक्स्ट आधारित सोशल नेटवर्क पर क्या सुधार कर सकते हैं?
बाहरी दृष्टिकोण से विशेष आलोचनाओं को प्रदान करना हमेशा काफी कठिन होता है, क्योंकि मेरे अनुभव के अनुसार हर कोई आपको सलाह देता है कि आपको क्या।
Okay, if you want to look at now different modalities like a text, image, speech. So the strategy is very simple. You want, like when you're building a representation, this representation should be semantically aligned. So what you see on the picture, what you hear on the sound, at the end of the day inside the computer there's a representation, and the representation should come closer. So whether it is a text or a picture, if you are able to bring this representation closer or maximize the similarity between them, so you can seamlessly move from one modality to another. And today, we are talking about all the chat GPTs. Today, there are a large number of generative AI models in the multimodal space. And we can see what type of generations are possible for them today or tomorrow. The input could be one modality, output could be another modality. Input could be in one language, output could be in another language. All these seamless transitions across modalities is going to be possible with this. Okay, before I end, I also want to show you some more applications where this sort of technology could lead to. So if you look at today, you have a video call. And what's your usual problem? Suddenly the network goes. Everything compute in this, storage in this, network remains stagnant. Now, if the network goes down or network bandwidth goes down, like what can you do? How do you provide seamless visual experience to somebody? You can...
Shami Bhaiya, I think he was doing rehab and he was bowling at a very 120 wala pace, like for us, something utna pace pe. But I thought, okay, he's gonna bowl 120 and he promised कि वो मुझे ना body पे ball नहीं खिलाई.
One should be able to say dynamically synthesize on the fly. So remember why this is not possible today, why we don't go that way today. Because we are stuck in the world of standards. We are worried about, say, the moment you know that video calls are predominantly human face, machine learning algorithm takes over and provides solutions that is specific to human face or specific to an individual. If my phone knows this is going to be used by so-and-so for video call, the client on this should provide a solution that suits me, not for any general user. So one more example of video call. So we say video call, okay.
One of the main applications of our work is in compressing talking face videos to extremely compact representations, which can lead to serious bandwidth saving.
The number of bits that you need to send between transmitter to receiver is actually very, very small.
Talking face video frames across
if you know that this is going to be human
256 cross 256 versions in the receiver's end. To further improve compression, we train a frame interpolation network at the 8 cross 8 scale.
From something like this, you should be able to reconstruct the full video.
Based encoder-decoder architecture that can convert a 5 FPS video into a 25 FPS when allowing us to send only 1 in 5 low-resolution frames
which is
from the center
connected
to the
usually
receiver.
in many places.
The receiver can then use frame interpolation to create a 25 FPS 8 cross 8 videos, which are then upsampled to the full resolution of 256 cross 256 using the
one should
upsampling
be
network.
able to get the full 25 FPS.
We also observe that even after combining the frame interpolation network and the upsampling network generates realistic talking heads matching the original ground truth.
Okay, so this is going to be very interesting. So now we see a lot of interesting ways of generating. So there is a natural worry that you have. You have two requirements in your mind. One, you want the generation to be as original as possible. On the other hand, you say, if it is very original, you're worried it is too original. You never had this worry when you had a camera, you never worried that the picture quality should be as original. Hardware was generating, you never worried. Software was generating, like TTS, you never worried. When data generates, you worry. So this generation, on one hand you have a requirement of generation, generative AI, generate as natural as possible, as human as possible, as personal as possible. When it becomes too natural, then you worry, it's too natural, it's just taking over me. First, we need to know what we want before we start complaining or dreaming. Thank you.
That was captivating, isn't it? Now may I request Shri L.K. Reddy ji to please come over and felicitate Dr. Jawahar. To go deeper in the academic research and innovation space. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as we now have the privilege of requesting Shri Ramesh Loganathanji, Professor, Co-Innovation and Outreach at IIIT Hyderabad, to come on the stage and initiate the panel discussion on academic research and innovation in AI/ML.
What's your reflection?
Sir. After 25 years in product R&D space, Professor Loganathan moved to IIIT Hyderabad as faculty in 2016. He has also been a visiting faculty at IIT Hyderabad and a member of governing board of incubators at IIIT Hyderabad, IIT Hyderabad, IIIT Delhi, and BITS. He is also an accomplished technologist with over 20 years of product engineering and R&D leadership experience. It's our privilege, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So good afternoon. And if Jawar had a tough job, imagine our task. After a fantastic talk by a doctor and a fantastic talk by a kind of a leading foremost AI researcher in the country, I was just thinking about it like, I mean, it's a master class for anybody that doesn't know, forget AI, doesn't know computer science. It's a master class in 20-25 minutes. Jawar just took you all through what is AI and what is generative AI. Thanks, Jawar. And so it's going to be a tough task for us. So let me invite the fellow panelists onto the dais. First, Professor Atul Negi, a good friend of us, me, Jawar, many of us at IIIT, and from University of Hyderabad. I would like to invite Professor Usha Mehta from Nirma University, and Professor Deepthi Patel from Cummins College of Engineering for Women, and Professor Maunendra, head of the AI department at IIT Hyderabad. Please. So we're going to be discussing in the next, I don't know how much time we have, 43 minutes, okay, perfect. In the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to be looking at research and innovation, right? Academic research and innovation in AI and ML broadly, right? So we have perspectives. Somebody who's kind of very aware of commercialization, IP, patents, and such. And we have a core computer science researcher in Professor Atul Negi. And we have Professor Usha, who comes in with her own experience and background with computer science and research translation. And Maunendra, IIT Hyderabad, among the newer IITs, ranks often #1 in those IITs, especially for innovation, translation, and all the industry work that happens at IIT Hyderabad. So happy to have this panel. Would request, we'll just have short an opening address, because I think their work is too deep to directly dwell into a discussion. So thought would request each of them to give a quick introduction to their work and touch upon one topic. So we'll start with, let me just go with the order. So would start with requesting Professor Usha to introduce her work and also look at the, I mean, in this context, IESA, convergence of electronic semiconductors and AI. So Usha requests you to give your opening comments.
Yeah. So
I think the mic's there. It's on.
Yeah. So good afternoon to all. As I need to introduce myself first, I'm Usha Mehta. I'm professor and head at Electronics Engineering Department, Nirma University, Ahmedabad. And a small modification, I am a hardcore electronics engineer. So computer is where now I need to jump in with this AI and all these things. But basically from 2003 onwards, I am with semiconductor and VLSI. So now in this context, if I want to say what we are looking at, because from last 2 days and basically from last few years, we are seeing that the things are being changed with this AI. And particularly in terms of semiconductor industry and VLSI design, if I narrate, because I would converge all the things. So two things are happening. The one when we are teaching or when we are going with a research lab at our end, two things we are facing. One is what as a VLSI engineer need to learn to produce AI enablers, how we produce the new designs, new chip, like what our major research now will be in memory compute or hardware accelerator or something kind of processors which enable AI. And the other kind of research and learning activity goes to how AI helps us in this context. So we are looking at two different things, how we can use AI to make the design process and fabrication process easier, and how we can make our design and fabrication for the AI. And in this context, one more thing that is I am given chance, I would like to definitely add, that's not directly linked to this particular session, but I would not miss the chance. Within this, let me tell you, because many parents here, many professors here, and many industry leaders are here, we are getting the students who are addicted to AI. So that is the third dimension I would rather like to say, because even in this new generation, that depth of basic learning and the motivation, they just come and say, oh ma'am, we want the BTech degree in AI, or we want a hard course in AI, and just we want to jump in. So this is where we are facing three different domains, I would rather say, where people don't want to go with basics. People don't want to go basic computer. People don't want to go with basic electronics. They just want to have AI. They just want to have generative AI, and then have two fruits everywhere. So basically, So I need to conclude. I would say that currently we are in two phases. One, how my test data generation process, automatic test pattern, and DFT. Basically, I am from testing background of VLSI testing background. So me and my team are looking at how we can make our ATPG and DFT and built-in self-test easy, fast, and efficient using AI models. And the other way, we are in VLSI chip design research, where we are looking at in-compute memory and in-memory compute and hardware accelerators. Yeah, so this is a big background from my side.
Thank you, Professor Usha. I think there is a lot of work in IIIT. We have work happening in the trying to optimize the edge hardware for AI algorithms, and also optimizing algorithms for edge hardware. Yeah. So this convergence is becoming a reality, especially as these algorithms move to the devices, right? You can't always go to a powerful central computer to do everything. So I think that's a trend. We'll see how it shapes up. I don't think there's enough cost-effective compute that is there at devices, but it's a question of time. Maybe the next 1 or 2 years, it will change. Yeah. It will become very, very, so thank you, Professor Usha. So Professor Negi, University of Hyderabad, is a core computer science researcher, and so request you to just talk about patterns. I mean, Jawad did touch upon patterns in his talk as well. What's the role of patterns in AI? Yes.
Yeah, so just a bit of background first. University of Hyderabad was amongst the first institutes in the country to start an MTech in artificial intelligence. This is in 1988 onwards. We are continuing that even now. And what we were doing then is that at that time it was, as Ramesh has asked about the patterns, at that time it was the peak of the expert system time. Okay, so at the time it was that, you will find a few human experts, and then you are going to extract the data from them, and then you are going to put it into a system, and that was the AI. Okay, and of course soon the fallacies of that was exposed, that you couldn't, first of all, you could not really extract that expertise knowledge, and then it would fail when it is given some real world data and things like that. So then we came on to the next stage, that is we started trying to make the AI system to teach. Okay, that's when it was the rise of machine learning. Then we soon came to that even with the rise of machine learning, we were hitting a kind of a performance block. Okay, so that is performance was peaking around 78, 80, 90%. And of course, I was also part of the project with Professor Johar, where we are trying to teach optical character recognition to systems. And then every one of us there found out that, depending upon the training set, we were sort of flattening out. Meanwhile, the deep learning concepts came up and they pick up steam. Actually, to be frank, deep learning kind of things was first introduced in optical character recognition, okay? That is with the Fukushima neocognitron. And thereafter, what has stopped that from, actually performing is that what you guys have done in the hardware. That is, the hardware people made it really possible to have the processing capabilities by which whatever ideas which were there in the late 80s, early 90s, etc., could actually now realize and take place. So the humongous amount of weight trainings which is taking place and all that. So that is what I think so is making such kind of things realizable. However, some developments in deep networks or in the models like attention concept. Okay, so anyone who has read about the GPT and other such kind of things, they will see that there is a really landmark paper which came from Google, which is on attention concept. So attention concept is actually that, like us in human beings, we are getting assaulted by so many sensory input. But however, we are picking up some threads and paying attention to that, right? So similarly, when you are training a system, you would like that certain part of that input is getting enhanced. And through that, if you look at the neural architecture, some skip connections and other such things are there in the architecture by which that part of the signal is getting boosted and enhanced. Okay, and if we are observing some other such things like where as Professor Johar has said about text and text models. Okay, text we had the cloud era and all that. You have tons and millions of text, and of course the most famous success of the Chat GPT is of course because of the text, wherein it is able to make a text which is going to look like a text coming from a human being. All right, so there in text and all that, what is very important, and it is very similar to speech, is that there is sequence. And so you have a sequence and the transformation has to come from one sequence, it is input sequence, to the output sequence. Okay, so that's where the context of the transformers is coming in. Okay, so in a nutshell, this is what I would like to say, that this is how we have moved through the ages to come to the present status. Okay, now obviously what is going to happen further is whatever is there presently, the architectures and all is going into silicon, right? And that will make it faster, better and all these things, and hopefully that will start one more bootstrap cycle of algorithm invention and exploitation and things like that. Where we will go with that, I don't know. So that's what I would like to say.
No, absolutely. I think we're seeing a lot of, we're talking about silicon, with all the analog sensors that's going into the analog IPs. You could have a chip that has the sensing and has the patterns and the algorithms required to detect certain things. Right? Today's sensors just give some number. Now here it can actually give a derived insight, not just a number. It's happening today, and I'm sure it'll become more and more
There's
possible.
something called that concept, intelligent sensor.
Yes. So, yeah, thanks, Professor Negi. So, Professor Maunendra, we talked about this whole hardware part, little bit on patterns and software. I know you're doing a lot of work on the social space. That's tons of information. And even today, we got a request from the Commissioner's Office, Cyber Commissioner's Office, on being able to extract some specific insights they wanted from social media posts. Now, when we ask them, you should be having the tools, they do have the tools. They bought tools, but it still doesn't get them. So you'd be surprised that after 8-10 years of so much of data available, so many people working across the world, insights are still limited in terms of what you can extract meaningful, actionable insights from social media. So your opening comments, Monindra, both a little bit on your background and then on the social space.
Thank you. So yes, I work in the area of AI for social good. Now this term is actually very overused nowadays. So what do we really mean by social good? So one can actually think of the different areas like healthcare, agriculture, and things like that. And they are really, really very relevant because they can impact the lives of masses and not only a select few individuals or organizations. Now, at the same time, when we look at these different areas, even we pick one specific application area and we'll pick one specific topic, we also need to realize that whatever final solution that is going to come out, right, who will be using it? So there might be people from different age groups who will be using. So we need to be really careful that whatever is generated or whatever is produced is actually consumable by everyone. So we talk about text generation, image generation, and now there is a concept of toxicity in all these generated concepts. So, and toxicity can be of various types. It can be bias, it can be discrimination, it can be something which is obscene, it can be of various other things. So can we generate the content in which such kind of toxicity is either not there or minimized to the extent possible? So this is another angle of social relevance that we try to work on. And then when we again talk about different age groups, different segments of the different customers, in most of the cases we'll see that there will be many segments which will be underrepresented in the data. So how can we make sure that the models learn in presence of very minimal or even non-existent data? So this is another focus area that we work on. Then all these algorithms, all these techniques, all these models, as it was pointed out again and again, and it's also a common sense knowledge now, that all these models are actually quite large, quite heavy, and they're going to be even larger and even heavier. Now, who are the people who are going to use these models? So big industries, yes, they will use these models. Then there will be possibly, our students or the different small organizations who will be using them. There can be different NGOs who would also like to incorporate those AI solutions in their area of work. Now, will they really have the power to host such a large complex model in their own system with periodic maintenance, training, and so on? Or even if it is API-based access, then also there are so many different costing structures, right? Token-based, API access-based, and so on. So is there a way in which we know that we'll be working on this kind of data and try to make the models as small as possible so that even these NGOs or the small startups or the small segments of, say, self-help groups, they can run and they can make use of all these different models. So these are the different themes that we try to focus on in our research. Actually, in IIT Hyderabad, we are planning to come up with a center for AI for social good. So we have many industry leaders here. So if you want to, engage in any conversation or in funding, please reach out to us. So these are some of the aspects that we do work on. And I feel that whatever we are seeing now, things will change in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. So to be prepared for all these scenarios and think before, as Professor Jawahar also mentioning, was that we need to extrapolate and see where we stand next, right? So these are some areas that we really like to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all very relevant and good that you're looking at a Center for Social Good. We have one named after Professor Raj Reddy. I mean, even today, he talks about if technology doesn't help the rural grassroots, it's not doing its job. And so he's a big proponent of technology helping the grassroots, especially rural. And we want to start a center in his name, and we said, let's call it Raj Reddy Center for Technology and Society. I would love to collaborate with you on your AI for Good Center. And toxicity in social media is a big problem. There was some work funded by Facebook and others in all the discussion groups on social media. A lot of suicides get triggered based on things that happen in social media, teenage. So I think, good you're looking at that. It's a huge problem. So just to kind of circle back and close the circle, Professor Deepthi, your background in commercialization, how do you connect these dots and generally what are your thoughts on commercializing AI solutions or broadly solutions, specifically AI? Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Dr. Deepthi Patil. I'm working as Professor and Dean in Cummins College of Engineering for Women, Pune. I'm also looking at after like student affairs activities and talking about in view of academics and research. As sir said that yes, initially there was like initially AI branch was introduced, but computer engineering was the actual discipline, and now AI has become a new discipline in engineering stream. So as I said that I am more interested in like how the research which faculty is carrying out, the students are carrying out, how we can commercialize it. That is also very important and should be look upon, because until and unless we connect the dots between academics, research and industry, the research will not have that value addition. We being faculty publish research, our research work, but it should not remain in the books only, and it should actually come into as a product. And for that purpose, the better way, as government is also motivating students to come up with startups. So whatever innovations they are coming with and the research they are doing, it has to be collaborated with industry, and it should be the intellectual property should be protected. And with that, the products, like as Dr. Ram said, that the lot of medical research is carried out in industry. The same type of research is faculty is carrying out. They have certain innovative ideas. If they come together, then there will not be any repetitive task, and the work and the intelligence which under time which the researchers have put up, it will fasten the process of bringing the product in the industry. Talking about my research, I am working in space technology. One of the research problem statement I have worked, like I am very happy to say that I have worked on lunar landing project with URSC, and it was the project where how we can using only images we can autonomously control the spacecraft. So as Monindra sir said that the chips are becoming smaller, the computing power is increasing, but how on the small chips the big models can be run, and efficiently those algorithms can give you real-time performances. So with this type of innovations, and obviously this is like a multidisciplinary domain. So not only AI, we cannot see only the computer scientist, but when we are automating the process, again the other disciplines come along, and how we can collaborate it and come up with the different products. We have to give thought upon this. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I think space tech, like you said, is a convergence. Just talking about use cases, Usha, if you could share, what are you seeing where there's hardware involved? Are you seeing some real solutions, real problems that's being targeted, like anything that you're familiar, where hardware and AI is coming, use cases where hardware and AI is converging?
Not exactly use cases, but suppose right now I am talking about what with one of my students are working basically in testing domain. So suppose that's a automatic test pattern generation, which we are heavily using, and that's a very time consuming and very complex activity for any of the chip. So when there are a repeated backtracking and revert of decision making is happening during this ATPG algorithms and so on. Now somewhere we could add, so we are planning, say we are looking at different models, how this earlier knowledge that AI accumulates and help the ATPG algorithm, so that the paths which were wrongly taken in earlier chips testing and the current chip testing, those paths are not to be taken. So that kind of intelligence we are planning to add to our EDA tools, algorithm and so on. Suppose the same thing happens with DFT. So some of the hard points which are difficult to control or observe, and we can have a priori knowledge that yeah, these are the points which definitely to be. So right now we are getting it for every chip, we are getting the same data again and again. So that based on like that we are trying to introduce this help of AI to our ongoing research activity.
Very interesting. I mean, we have a computational natural sciences group where I remember 4 or 5 years back, the professor who heads it, when we asked like, what are possible technologies from your research work? He said very confident it's a highly theoretical work, there are no use cases possible. 5, 6 years back.
Yeah.
Today it's a very hot group because computational drug discovery, in many ways similar to what you said, where they have to test the molecules under different conditions, using simulation, their chemistry models and the machine learning models, they're able to test many, many molecules like before even trying to go to the lab with a few.
Yes.
So it not only is it shortening the whole development cycle, but it's also broadening what all they can experiment with, because a lot of it can be done just in a computer. So it's true, I think.
So based on the data sets for this particular design and the priori knowledge of earlier data sets and earlier knowledge, we can easily predict, yes, this is our target points. And then our algorithm will be directed towards that end.
So it can speed it up and also probably make it more complete. More complete. So Maunendra, on social good, what are some exciting use cases you've come across, either from your works or anything else you've come across, where AI applied for beyond kind of course, a lot of data happens in the social media and such, but going beyond into the broader society, any particular use cases you've come across that's very exciting?
So there are quite a few cases. For example, if we especially take the Indian scenario, say multilinguality is a major need, right? So, however, we talked about large language models, which we say that they are empowering many different newer applications. However, if you look at really useful multilingual models which can take or which can solve many problems, especially from the Indian context, a lot more needs to be done. Then, again, in these kinds of scenarios, we also need to, always have all these debates like who is owning the data, right? So there is a need of setting up for a framework where we come up with a large-scale model which can possibly represent the Indian ethos, the knowledge system, and other content which is there. So nowadays we are seeing so many different people who are getting connected to the social media and different digital services, not only social media. So a lot of different type of data that is getting generated. Now, at the same time, when they're also consuming the data, so many of them are the first generation users of these digital services. So in order to make sure that, whatever they get, they can comprehend, at the same time, there are no privacy errors and other things. So all these things together, there needs to be an ecosystem that needs to be developed. So we are working on a framework that is called Bharat GPT. So there was a session in the first half where I think Dr. Ganesh was also involved and Xavier was there. So yes, we are actually working on something called Bharat GPT. So there is a proposal which is a multi-institution proposal which has been submitted to the ministry, the DST as well as the MeitY. And he has got very favorable comments from there. So there we are trying to develop something which is multilingual, multimodal, and will a lot of guardrails around it to ensure that the data ownership is respected. People are incentivized in some sense to share the data, and there are different other policies which have been developed. So we can simply think of a use case. Again, there was a comment in one of the earlier panels that when a, say, farmer interacts with such a system, most likely he'll not use English, right? And most likely he or she is not going to type the entire thing using a keyboard. So apparently the person will just speak to the interface, right? So audio is coming. Suppose the person is saying that, okay, I'm sensing that something is wrong with my crops. I see some insects. Can you please help me with the next steps? And the system can possibly translate that into or convert that audio to text and then process it to understand what the person might be talking about. And it responds that, okay, can you please send me a picture of that? Now the person clicks a picture and sends it. Now, from audio to text we come to image. And then the algorithm actually takes that image, runs some technique, and finds out what might be wrong, and then curates a response which could be useful for that person, and also possibly say, okay, this is the pesticide that you need to apply, and these are the places from which you can buy it, this could be the possible cost. So all these things coming into picture, not only the modalities, the different sources of information together, and these are the kind of things that possibly we need to actually have the real power of these kinds of systems.
No, absolutely. I think data sets are key. I mean, and this state is very proactive support. Like, we have a very large India driving data set project with Java leads. And it's possible to be a public data set only because state is behind it. I mean, like you said, policies around what can you make public. Since you're not very sure, most research groups take a conservative view and say, like, I'll just focus on my work and not make it public. I don't deal with any issues from outside. And healthcare, like you said, it's a bigger problem. And even agri, where there is no much of, unlike privacy concerns with healthcare, agri, there's not much of privacy concerns. Even there, the data is very hard. You can't get enough data sets. The good you have taken that initiative. I think we should all collaborate and amplify that in a big way. So now, if you just look at what excites, I mean, like a technology area that excites, maybe each of you can just quickly name one area. What do you, in terms of current research works, one technology area that you think is exciting for you, or you find it holding very, very interesting or exciting outcomes in the coming years? We will just start with Deepthi. One area that you think, current research area that's very hot in your mind.
I would say about a space technology.
Space tech?
Yeah. Because there are so many things from ground to space. So everywhere with the, let's say, about a communication, the data which is gathered, the data which is processed to control the different devices, the space technology is going to get boom because many initiatives are taken, like in space is there. So debris detection, you can say about autonomous landing, different space missions, the satellite imagery data to be processed, so many things to be done. And obviously it is not possible without AI. And that is the need. Actually the things are happening, but if you can automate it with the power of AI, it will be really a great thing.
No, absolutely. I think it's all technologies converge when it comes to space. Yes. I grew up in Sririgota, so I was there recently for a school reunion just before the big launch. And we went to visit, it was a week before the launch, and we were standing right below the nozzle where the two strap-on boosters. So you're right, space is extremely exciting, and of course, technology-wise, extremely complex.
So just I would like to interrupt that there is one more challenge actually, that the data is not available. And when we are saying about AI algorithms, data is very much needed. And when then the Jawahar sir said that you can generate the data with generative AI. So can we use that thing? Because when we implemented that lunar landing project, we were not having lunar landing videos. And if you don't have those videos, how you are going to train the model? That was the big question. And from that, we have come up with the different ideas and patterns. But yes, that is the challenge. Data is the challenge, and the AI and generative AI will give the solution for that.
No, absolutely. I think you would get very creative. I was laughing because for one of the defense PSUs, we did a missile seeker algorithm. It's a short-range missile. And we needed videos of the its battle tank, anti-tank missile. The team went and picked video games. They picked video games and then took video snippets from video games and used that to build the initial model, because there are tanks in video games. And you have the terrain view, and
so we did the same thing, that we use Unreal Engine for that, for generating those videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to get very creative. So Prasusha, your thoughts on what's an exciting area that you think, a research area in the coming years?
Okay, I would say that AI...
Ma'am, mic.
Oh, sorry. I would say AI-enabled EDA tools to make NI hardware for AI. So because now we are looking that the expectations from hardware are increasing a lot, and if we are trying to have this new gen hardwares with this heavy computation capacity and all this thing, this fast processing and everything, the conventional EDA tools, so naturally they are changing, and they will have to also use AI. So it's like kind of a problem where using AI for the AI. So yeah, that's one challenging thing.
I think you're right. I think with
And,
SOCs, there's going to be an explosion of SOCs and such. But if more testing required, you can't use conventional approaches.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. AI enabled hardware using AI AI enabler hardware using AI enabled EDA tools.
For AI, I know. It's a three-way AI. So Atul, your thoughts, what do you think is an exciting research area where you expect a lot to happen in the next
Yeah,
years?
I am really excited with context-sensitive intelligent sensors. So let me give an example. Say like, let's say, the gas sensor, basically our nose is a gas sensor. So it senses the gas. We have receptors which are sensitive to certain molecules and things like that. Okay. So if we are able to have that, various things we are sampling all the time, but the intelligent sensor would start examining what types of triggers are happening, and then if there is something which is going to be actionable or something like that, that is one of the examples I would like to give. Another example where I have worked upon already is like, this was during the Corona time. That is in the Corona time, it was a very big thing that whether or not somebody is wearing a mask. So we had some research which was on, of course, visual detection of the mask compliance. So we had something like that. But just imagine that it is built into some into a door sensor at the entry point. It is that the door will not activate if the mask compliance is not there. So you just cannot enter the room without the mask compliance. Okay, so like this, different types of sensors and with their control logic, if you are able to have at various contexts, I think from engineering point of view, it will be really a very big hit. And there are so many sensors, because what I feel is now the entire R&D activity will move towards the sensors. See, we have already reasonably good machine learning and actually inference engines. Okay, so then what is stopping it from being actually deployed? The sensors. So the sensors data plus with the intelligence action. So basically what I think is that the server context where you have huge humongous training machines and etc. may be being used, but later on, but I think slowly things are going to move to the edge. And at the edge, maybe are you able to have sensors which are using quantum effects or something like that. So, very trace amounts, parts per million, parts per billion kind of sensitivities, which maybe we have. Just imagine, see, like your tongue sensitivity is parts per billion or million maybe, like just somebody says, oh, this has a burnt taste. It might have been one molecule in so much of thing, but it has spoiled the taste for someone. So are we able to imagine or come up with that type of sensors with that type of sensitivity, and then of course bring it into the actionable part through the AI? I think so. That is, for me, that's going to be the frontier, right?
I think that's a huge challenge. I mean, taste and smell. I think science and technology is like probably decades away before we can get to anywhere close. Touch, I think we're somewhere there with touch, both synthesizing the surfaces and also sensing. Taste and smell is like probably quite some time away before we get anywhere near it. You want to add something?
Yeah. Actually, as sir is saying, I'm working on one of the researches that is olfaction analysis. So,
that's a tough space, yes.
So breath of a human, that is one of the vitals from which we can predict some of the diseases. So if we can develop such kind of device, we are in process of developing such kind of device. It is sensor-based device which will find out the gas composition in our exhaled breath and then predict what type of diseases the person can have and has. So it can be a type of a pathological test which can be designed, but it requires medical practitioners, validations, and obviously the inputs from like, that's why I'm saying that research is not one way. you should have collaboration
Work
and
closely with the field, yeah.
domain area.
And still, those are still very narrow when it comes to what Atul's talking about. I mean, a sense, what all we can taste.
Yeah.
I think science, it can probably look for specific chemicals like you mentioned.
Yes.
But pure, complete olfactory is long ways away.
But it is a huge area of research.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting area. Like when you talk about all these 4D experiences, you can synthesize sound, you can synthesize things like water, temperature, visually, but you can't synthesize smell today, right? If you're creating a movie, you can't synthesize smell today. It's a long ways away. Synthesizing should be relatively easier than sensing. Even synthesizing we can't do today. So Monendra, I have one other question for you, but quickly, any technology that excites you, one technology that excites you, a research area or technology?
Well, in terms of impact, so it will be like AI for law or AI in the legal domain.
AI for law. I mean, absolutely. We had a roundtable with Nalsar a few months back. The VC himself was there. So one of the things that he brought about was that like today, if somebody wants to they have a legal issue, they depend on whoever they know or they don't know, right? There's no trusted advice. Okay, your friend's brother is a lawyer. You don't have a clue how good or bad the person is. You'll just go talk to the person, get whatever advice and act on it. So you want a simple system, ChatGPT-like system, where somebody can say that this is my issue. System should give as clear advice as possible on what the recourse is, remedial. You're right, something as simple as that is not available. Much lesser in terms of other complex, no, absolutely. So on another thing for you, Monendra, see, we have so much of work happening, right? I'm sure there are at least 30, 40 very strong research groups in the country, right? In AI, doing a lot of work. Some of them are interdisciplinary with healthcare or with others, like AIMS has with IIT Kanpur and IIT Delhi. And there are a lot of interdisciplinary work also happening in different domains. And yet, the adoption is very, very low. So since you're looking at the field, when you talk about AI for social good, why is the adoption of AI so low in the country?
A couple of reasons. One is when we talk about this kind of AI systems and their, absorption of those kinds of systems, a lot depends on the infrastructure. And many times this infrastructure support is required from the government side also. So for example, we can talk about traffic cameras and so on. But just installing the traffic cameras is not enough. So let me talk about one project that we had. The project name was M2 Smart. It was an Indo-Japan project. And there were multiple institutes from Japan and also those were involved. We had some pilot in in Hyderabad and Ahmedabad. The overall goal of that was to reduce the CO2 emission by 5%. Now, it was a 5-year project. And what we felt was that one major source of that CO2 is the transport. Now, if you can motivate people to take public transport, this will come down. And as part of that, many different exercises were taken, like how to reduce the uncertainty with traffic, travel time, and other things. Lots of sensors were developed to sense the CO2. Are we actually able to reduce that? As part of that, we also plan to erect some poles on the national highway. So those poles will also have traffic cameras. The data will directly come to our servers. So we need to first get permission for erecting those poles. Then, once those were there, we need to install the cameras, and then there were some procurement rules. Now, once those cameras were installed, after that, we need to ensure that power supply is there and network connectivity is there so that the data can be transmitted. Now, after a lot of time, this power connection was made, but then there were approvals needed to turn that on. Then for this networking also, it had to be turned on high-speed network for a longer time. Then also we need to have a lot of negotiation. Although we can mention what we are trying to do in some 4 to 5 sentences, but to make this work, there were lots of different bodies that were involved, and finally, to make everything working, lots of time and energy were required. So it's not only what we are trying to do, but that complete ecosystem which is there around this. Everything has to be supported, and possibly it should be very smooth and seamless. So that is one thing. And the second thing would be like, still people are not very much, there is a lot of skepticism and also concerned about privacy around this. So I hope that as more and more such applications come, that privacy concerns are appropriately dealt with. I think people will be a little more open towards accessing those things. However, whenever there is some infrastructure requirement, we need to look at it from some other angles also, not only the research perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in the public domain is even harder. I mean, if you're just talking about the cameras, Hyderabad has about 40,000 cameras that's connected to the central command centers, 2 or 3 command centers in the city. And still, when they go buy a system for purpose specific, the vendor will come and say like, I will deploy 25 cameras. I will deploy my own communication. I'll deploy my own servers. I'll give my own app. You use it and use it for the purpose. They don't even think of saying that there are 40,000 cameras. Why can't I use those cameras? Now, for all kinds of reasons. I mean, one thing like these are all imported or somebody else has built. The vendor is just a distributor. The vendor cannot open the box. So even though the system may support connecting to other cameras, but this vendor doesn't know how to do it. And it's a lot of information skew. I mean, the one that has information, the one that builds the solution, one that's deploying. So they put the whole tender on hold, the state government, especially for the Hyderabad city, because now they want to write this into the next phase of the whole camera project. They want to standardize the data coming in, and they want to say like anybody coming in with a solution can only come with the algorithm. They should not impose their own hardware. They should use the existing cameras. It's 1.5 years and they're still working on it. That thing is on hold, that whole RFP process. That is thinking about it, but even 3 years back, 2 years back, that's how it would be. So I think there's data, there is problem, there is solution. I think many, even in the corporate sector, I think same problem, right?
So it's something like a software platform where there are multiple microservices. We want to see how those things can be integrated, and there should be a proper orchestration to make everything work together. Exact same thing should be replicated in this environment.
No, I think in the government public sector is very hard, but I think even in enterprises it's not easy. You going to add something?
Yeah, yes, that's what I was saying, that adaptability is missing actually. Like once you deploy it, then you have to again get it updated, and that type of dynamic changes has to be incorporated in the softwares, and accuracy is one of the concerns. And one of the things like right now Dr. Ram gave the example that chatbots are better solution to handle with patient, but then we have to incorporate emotions too with those chatbots, then only it will give a feel like mother. Yeah, so that is also needed.
That's, I think Turing test passing machines quite some time away. Atul.
I would like to address the question which you had posed for Manindra. See, the thing is like, there are so much of novelty, and the pace of novelty is tremendous in AI. We don't have standards. So standardization is a very important step by which the technology adoption can grow by bounds. So see, just for example, like if you say IEEE 802.11 standards are there. So 802.11 is there now there, and everyone has got one device with themselves. So that way. So if you wish that AI adoption should grow, we have to start thinking of or laying down standards.
No, absolutely, and publicize them. If you talk about the camera use case, all the cameras come into command center, and a single kind of video panel can show any vendor's camera. There is standardized way of data coming in. It's just not public, not available for somebody else that wants to build a software solution. Usha, you going to add something, ma'am?
Yeah, not to this. You wind up, then I will.
No, please go ahead. We're closing anyway. So
you are closing. So irrespective of this, one gentle appeal I want to do to all the industry people and corporate people sitting here. See, the current scenario, if we are looking at the industry and academia, research we are talking, they are in their different silos. Somewhere, I say Dipti would also agree with me that industry has some linkage with IIT and NITs. That's really appreciated, and we are doing at that front wondering. But if you know the recent news and everywhere, when we are doing a tremendous work by ISRO and everywhere, and that headline shows that For those such missions, there were no IITians and NITians, and the most of the times they were the regional college students, regional college students. So what my gentle appeal is that now the time has come when the industry has had lots of fund in their corporate social responsibilities. So somewhere now the time has come that if we want to get everything done, we are talking about so hi-fi engineering, technology and everything, let's get the advantage of our entire youth. Right now that is missing. I would appeal that that is missing. We are targeting, sorry if I don't want to hurt anyone. I have very high regards for all IIT, NITs and all the people. They have done wonderful. But I would say that again they have their own set of mind and they have set of rules and we know the reality. So at the end what we are having right now in India is these regional students who are working at every front wonderfully. So my sincere appeal to all the people sitting here, because they are the game changer. And I have got the mic, so I will not miss this opportunity. They are the game changer. So please change the game. This is high time. We involve each and every youth of India in this big game. Otherwise, we will not win. Few people, few students, few academicians cannot win this game. If we want to win, we will have to get everyone in the team. Sorry if I have hurt anyone.
No, not at all, ma'am. I think it's a very valid point.
This is what my message and my appeal to everyone.
We have to create a network of institutions. There's some efforts on, but very, very small pockets. IIT does something, we do something. There's some efforts on, but not a whole lot. I think we need to create a network. I mean, we've been talking about creating a research web, get a lot of institutions together, and take large-scale problems that can be collaboratively solved. In that process, we'll get more and more institutions into this fold. We should, absolutely. It doesn't happen today.
Because none of the industry, none of the technology will survive without the students. And the students are there at everywhere in India, not at few cities or not at the few metros only. So we need to focus them.
Absolutely. On that note, that we will take this up as one action item from everything else was just some dissemination, sharing some experiences, but this is an action item for all of us to see how we can create this web. We'll do. We have some thoughts already. I think we'll amplify that. So thank you so much. I mean, there are a few more points to discuss, but we're already at least 5 minutes over time. So thanks, Monendra, Atul, Usha ma'am, and Deepthi. And thanks to IESA for doing this, an AA Summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent panel discussion. May I request Professor Ramesh Loganathanji to felicitate the esteemed guests. Now may I request Sri Balpreet Singh ji to felicitate Sri Ramesh Loganathan ji. Thank you.
Your reflection. Find your direction. What's your reflection? 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 Find your direction.
Thank you.
What's your reflection?
In the interest of time, we have postponed and we are going to have networking high tea at 5. Thank you for your patience. Now let's continue as the day is becoming better with each session. Please join your hands as now we have the privilege of requesting Shri Pradeep Thakurji, Country Head and VP D-Metrics, to come to the stage and initiate panel discussion on success stories and challenges of AI/ML startups. And in the panel we have Shri Durga Pedireddy, VP of Product Management and Strategic Partnership, SEMA.ai, Dr. Venu Kandadai, Founder and CEO, Manjeera Digital Systems, and Sarvendra Govindam Magari, Architect and Director, HW Engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, please join your hands for the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time and being here late in the afternoon on the second day. So I have a privilege of hosting Sarvendra, Durga, and Professor Kannadai here Sarvendra joins us from Blaze. He's currently the architect and director with hardware engineering. Durga Pedireddy joins us from SEMA.ai. And we have Dr. Venu Kandadai. He's the founder and CEO of Manjeera Digital Systems, based here in Hyderabad. So with this esteemed panel, the one topic that this panel has a special focus on is to really talk about hardware and the hardware of the AI. And between myself and three of my colleagues here, we are all representing startup ecosystem in AI compute space. And we are going to talk a little bit about what we do, what are the challenges that we deal with in terms of deep tech, technology development challenges. But then we are going to change the format a little bit, and we are going to open up for the audience questions sooner rather than towards the end. So with that format set, I would like to request our logistics support to just make sure microphones are around in about 15 minutes so that we can take the Q&A. So with that, first I would like to focus on the topic of the little bit of a deeper dive on the hardware aspects of the product or a chip that each one of us are developing here. I would like to start with Dr. Kannadai, please, to share details.
Good afternoon. I'm Venu. I represent Manjeera Digital Systems. We are a high-performance computing solutions company. Our approach is to see how you improve the performance of a computing device by removing the bottlenecks that you have in computing. Traditionally, if we look at how the computing has evolved, starting from simple microprocessors, there have been a lot of incremental approaches to solve the problem of trying to speed up the computations. For example, starting from an initial microprocessor or a CPU, you have added multipliers into the arithmetic logic unit, and then you have DSP capabilities like MAC unit and barrel shifter and so on. And then you have SIMDs and VLW architecture. These are kind of incremental ways of solving the problem. Now, when we talk about something like AI, it's a true high-performance computing problem. And for this, an incremental approach will not do. You have to think, what I mean exactly by that is take a step or two back and say, where exactly am I getting these bottlenecks from? And how do I change the architecture or an approach of computing so that I don't encounter these bottlenecks. That is how you remove, rather than saying that, okay, I have this and I will make some changes so that I'll reduce the bottlenecks. Okay, so this is where the approach has to be different. One example, in my opinion, such a non-incremental, a fundamentally different approach is when you go from CISC processors to RISC processors. To start with, a reduced instruction set looks counterintuitive. How is it going to solve the problem of speeding up the computations? But if you really look at it, that enabled something like pipelining, etc., and then that is how you are able to improve the speed of computations. So this is a method of going a step back and trying to see where am I having problem and how do I solve this problem. One such approach in achieving high-performance computing that we use in our technology is to kind of separate out the data path and control path in computation. This is an area where a lot of research has happened for a long while. But all the time, when you separate data path and compute path, data path most of the time is something like custom ASIC, hardware accelerator for a given algorithm or a set of algorithms. There was no true data path processor with its own instruction set, data path instruction set, and which can, the reason why you need to separate control path and data path, that's clear, because when you separate out control path and data path, you are going to there are two different things doing control and computations in parallel. That is how you achieve the higher performance. But then, when you separate out the data path, you actually want a processor, which is a data path processor. You want to have an instruction set, which is a data path instruction set. It is like a processor, not a custom ASIC or a hardware accelerator. That is what we are able to do. We have a set of instructions for our processor. Our processor is called Universal Multifunction Accelerator, UMA. And then it has a set of instructions which we call them as middle stratum operations. And here we went one more step ahead. What we have done is in these middle stratum operations, apart from including the computations that are there in the data path, we also included memory access. That means here is an instruction, a middle stratum operation is an instruction which not only knows what kind of computations to be done, but it also knows from where the data has to be brought in for these computations. So this is a true data path because in this approach, in control path, there is no data, it's only sequencing. Yeah. Like for example, loops or decision making and so on and so forth. There is no data there. In data path, you have data, all the computations. That is where we finally achieve by doing this, the performance of a custom ASIC, of a hardware accelerator, but programmability of a normal CPU. These are actually two ends of the spectrum. Getting performance you achieve by building a custom ASIC, but it's not programmable. You use something like a CPU, which is completely programmable, but then it doesn't give you performance because there are, control data, everything is mixed. So this is what we try to bring together by separating out data path and control path, and then building a true data path processor that is Universal Multifunction Accelerator. With this, we are able to do several DSP applications, starting from all kinds of video, audio codecs, and computer vision algorithms, OpenCV algorithms, and so on and so forth, very efficiently, showing very high performance, as though you built a custom ASIC for each of those applications, but it's not a custom ASIC. Each of those applications are actually software running on Universal Multifunction Accelerator or UMA. Then, when AI started becoming important and people were looking for a suitable process for AI, we were initially doing AI on UMA, but then subsequently we added some additional specialized instructions which we call as tesseracts into UMA, and UMA with tesseracts, we call it as tessraptor, and that's a data path processor for AI applications. Now, with this, we are able to achieve extreme high performance, and one more advantage of this data path processor is its power consumption is extremely low, particularly when we are able to include the memory access and then bring memory and interface it in a specific way to your data path processor. So you are doing near memory computing. Okay, so bringing this near memory computing, maintaining very high degree of data locality, we are able to achieve high performance at very low power consumption. And in fact, when you take this approach, even your silicon area becomes small. These are the what we are able to achieve. So we built this, we built an ASIC with this EMS. We built a baseband processor, SoC actually. And then now we are doing AI accelerators using tessraptor at present on FPGAs, but then moving forward, we'd like to do a ASIC. Nice. So this is what we do, and this is what our approach is kind of different from what many people are trying to do to solve the AI computations problem.
Sure. Thank you, Vanu. I would like to request Sarvendra to talk about the graph native computing products that they have.
Yeah, thank you, Pradeep. So you might have been fed with a lot of information since yesterday on how we do AI, how we do ML, right? All of those workloads, like at an instruction level, they all boil down to either a matrix multiplication or a convolution. So let me not talk too much about the compute as such, but I'll talk about our architecture, which is graph native computing. So what is your total AI ML workload, right? Like what we are talking about, the neural networks, different types of neural networks that we have seen so far. So they are all represented as a form of a graph. So you will get best performance out of your hardware, and you are able to like achieve the results when your hardware is really able to understand the graphs and how the total workload is working. So that's where our architecture has been USP for us uniquely. So we have what's called a graph streaming processor, and the compute is pretty much same everywhere, like it's either matrix multiplication or convolution. But what we have in addition that is quite special is the hardware scheduler, which natively understand the graphs and how graphs are connected. So if you take the AI ML applications, right, mostly the graphs are pretty straight. There is no dependency, but our design has been originally designed to solve the pre-processing and the post-processing as well in an AI/ML application, wherein you have your image and then you want to perform several ISP or a CV or a DSP operations, where you need to make a decision on the fly, and then you have to manipulate the data on the fly, right? So that's where our architecture excels, where it natively understands the graphs and then the dependencies between them, and then where you have your data generated in intermediate, like you have multiple nodes in a graph. The first node generates set of data, and then that data is consumed by the second set. So far, if you look at NVIDIA, right, their data goes off the chip and comes back, most of the cases. And for us, because the hardware understands the graph, the intermediate data can be consumed on the die, without having to go for the DRAM bandwidth, which is one of the major problems as the networks and the workloads grow. So your bandwidth and then the compute to memory ratio is what is most critical, and our hardware excels in trying to keep the data mostly on the chip and consuming the input and then generating the output without having to transfer the internal data going out of the chip. And that's the unique part about it. And in general, in interest of time, I'll conclude there, because most of the rest of the stuff is pretty much general, like everybody else is doing the same.
Thank you so much, Sharvendra. Durga, if we could hear a hardware perspective from you in this panel, on the heterogeneous, particularly in context of SOC architecture, that will be very helpful.
Sure. Oh, okay. So I think last 2 days, I think there is one very good point I think people talked about is actually start with the domain. Start with where the application is, right? You know, because if you take that approach, because when we are focusing on the edge side of things, that is especially at the inference part of it, it is a very horizontal play. And then taking that horizontal play and then being successful in the vertical domains, we talked about healthcare, the morning session started about automotive, then the retail, and then the healthcare. And also, I think a few minutes ago, we talked about the smart cities and smart transportation. So how do we really map this horizontal play into the verticals so that you can get a very good customer experience or the accuracy part of it? So that's why I think the hardware architecture really plays a very important role on this, because we cannot change the chip on the fly, right? So for that, you know, so the approach that we have taken at the CMO.ai is very unique. We are the only company that has built a purpose-built SoC that is full acceleration from the data acquisition to the inference, complete inference to the perception stack, right? You know, so that's the complete data path that we are accelerated it. But then the question comes because in the previous talk, we talked about a lot of multimodalities. That means the data is coming at real time. When you are seeing a video at every frame coming in, there is also a speech coming in at the same time. That means you got to process the data parallelly, not actually sequentially, number one. Number two, there is a lot of data that is coming in. So you cannot have the buffers to actually store the data. Number three is that you got to fuse all these different modalities coming in and intelligently predict what is next coming. So if you take all this into account, we cannot have like a monolithic based architecture. So that's why we went with heterogeneous architecture, where we have the vector processor doing some of the vectorized operations, and we have the control processor doing the traditional control operations, and we also have a homegrown ML accelerator, which is a very parallel compute with a tiles approach. And then we have a unique way of arranging the memory in that, both L1, L2, and the L3 memory. And then how do we tie this all together? That's where we actually looked at the complete data path and the modalities. And when you combine all these things, right, so you can do the compute. But at the same time, I think the previous panelists, they were talking about the video cameras coming in. So the video cameras, when they're coming in, there are different video formats. So that means, we cannot go out of the chip to actually do the video decode or encode aspect. So we got to suck that in also into the chip. So there are other elements that we have taken into account, looking at it from a system point of view, and then architected this chip that is exclusively for the accelerating AI at the edge, so that we can go after the multiple verticals. And this will give you the scalability in terms of the programmability aspect of things. Number two, it is also giving you the economy of scale from a function-specific chip point of view as well. So that answers.
Thank you, Durga. Very insightful. Thank you so much. So at D-Matrix, we are focused primarily on the area of in-memory compute and developing an AI acceleration that would primarily work in the applications of the generative AI and the transformer-based models. In general, I think when you look at the Moore's law and what has been happening for past few years, it is going to be at the tipping point at some point. And data centers and enterprise and so on, the need for the performance at a reduced power is going to be continuously there. So at some point, you've got to go beyond the what you can get out of the process and the technology and focus more on the fundamentals of the architecture. And that's where in-memory compute comes in. In in-memory compute, the element of computation is basically pulled inside the modified memory cells. And that way, certain key computations that are required for generative AI do not require the data movement. And when you don't have a data movement, your power reduction comes down. So a standard one-human architecture that relies on compute in one place and storage in another, and moving the data between compute and storage, that itself generates power, and it introduces latency, so it brings down the performance. So now if you want to really go beyond and not really rely just on the march of the technology, but you want to rely on the, transforming the architecture, that's when you have to think beyond this compute and store type of architecture and go beyond. And that's where in-memory compute comes. There are several startups. There are several other larger organizations as well that are working in the in-memory compute. It seems like a very promising space. But just like every startup, every new technology also has to prove itself through a good execution and a successful deployment. So we are sort of in early phase right now of the technology development, and this is our primary area of focus. So that's for the D matrix. Now regarding startup companies, and we all four of us here are representing startup companies. Standard challenges that we all deal with is hiring, talent attraction, execution, and fundraising, and all those are all very common things, and we are here because we have successfully dealt with at least most of it, if not all of it, right? So what are the key technology challenges that as each one of us have our journey into developing something new, what are the main roadblocks, or where do you see a very compelling gap that you feel need to address? So I would like to start with Venu and see with Manjeera Digital Systems, what are the key technical challenge that would be like a major breakthrough, or that has been like a major breakthrough? We would like to hear your perspective, sir.
Right. Only technical, right? Technical
Only
challenge.
technical.
Okay. Right. I think that's kind of obvious. When you build something very different, new, and then you say, I have a new processor with its own instruction set. And people say, what are you smoking? Are you Intel and, ARM and all these people have done? Are you trying to say you have done something like that? That's first question. Then the second thing, of course, is, well, how do I use this processor? What do I have to learn if I have to use this processor? So these are kind of, when you go to a prospective customer and then say that, look, here is the solution. As long as it is something which is solving a problem in a known way, then it's relatively easier for you to convince those people. But if you say that, okay, I have a fundamentally different approach and this is how I am trying to solve, then it becomes that much more difficult to convince a person to use this technology. So we got into this loop. Then we say, all right, let me go back and prove it on something. So we build a POC on an FPGA. Then you go back to the customer. Then they say, oh, POC on a customer, on an FPGA? Fine, but how will it be on ASIC? Will it work on ASIC? All right, we go back, put some more money, and try to do an ASIC. Okay, so then comes the question, all right, you are now doing 10 teraflops, 20 teraflops. How will it scale to 2000 teraflops? So this is the problem. So there is a kind of, you have to get that first customer, and you have to convince somebody to take the risk and try to use this. This barrier becomes bigger the more your technology is kind of very new. The newer your technology is, and you try to say that, first of all, you have to say it's something very different, because you have to give a reason why they should come to you. But the moment that itself is a problem, because when you say it is something very different, then their worry is, how would I know that it will work? So that's primary challenge, I think, pure technical. And other things like funding, for example, that's one more thing that probably I don't have to talk right now. But One technical challenge here is to convince about a completely new technology.
Certainly, I think that, that crossing the barrier to convince a investor in a new technology in our ecosystem, it still remains incredibly painful. And hats off to you and your team to manage this part. So, thank you. Sarvendra, we'd love to hear one, key challenge in technology that Blaze has overcome, and see if you could enlighten us in some deeper dive.
So, one key technological challenge, right? Like it actually goes and solves multiple problems. So as you mentioned at the start, right, we wanted to concentrate on the hardware. But then for the very first time, we have a challenge where the software is ahead of the hardware in the AI. So the software workloads inspired or challenged the hardware to innovate and then create products. That's where we are today. So for us, I assume it's the same for everyone. The challenge is having the hardware designed to work better with the software to give a total user experience or a total performance or total productivity, right, at the system level. So the biggest challenge is how at this rate, like where we are talking about terabytes of data going in and out, and the workloads are also like very scaling from very small image processing to all the way to the ChatGPT level, right? Like the biggest challenge would be designing a hardware that works with the software very well and then solves a range of problems scaling from very small, low power to a high data center, like high throughput, like multiple tops where it can scale up and then solve any type of problem. That's the biggest challenge that we solve to the extent and we are continuing to solve.
Yeah. So in a semiconductor solutions, I think software first is, you'll often hear that term, and I think in AI, hardware implementation, particularly if you don't have your software right or well thought out ahead of time, your chip would be as good as just paperweight, right? Even though it may be fully functional. So absolutely agree with you, and I think we all will concur on that point. So thank you. How about you, Durga, for the
Good.
Seema?
I think I want to continue on the same train of thought you're having. You just mentioned. So the key for the AI adoption is to really make the customer effortlessly transition from their current legacy products to the AI products. So to make that effortless, right, so over the last 2 days, they were talking about many models, not the CNN models, but the foundation models, all that. So how do we really enable the customer so that you provide a platform to them? It has to be a platform approach. Provide a platform to them that can support any models so that it is actually future-proof. And also provide them the performance or the accuracy we are looking at. Like in the morning, the panel member was talking about in case of automotive, there is nothing like 95% done or 98% done, because one incident can actually ruin up the whole thing. Same thing in the healthcare space, right? When they're doing operation, one small thing, right? So that's why the system has to be very accurate. So we at SEMA, we actually took that effortless ML as one of the biggest challenges today. So the way we address that with is really coming out with this innovative software platform called Palette that will really make the journey of a developer easy, not just from trying to develop an application, but to trying to deploy it on a platform. And also once you deploy it, that's not enough, right? Because we know there is always monitoring needed for the device management to make sure that the accuracy is there and then the provisioning is happening. So this particular framework, Palette software platform, will really enable the customer to take the journey. And as Pradeep and others said, the fruit of that can be really be tasted with the proper routes of the tree, right? In the same way, the way the hardware is actually laid down. So this will be a perfect example of where you have the hardware architecture with the perfect software, looking at it from the application side. So that's how we at SEMA, now we are actually bringing out this effortless ML to the market.
Thank you, Durga. So I would like to share, for a startup company, the first problem of solving is solving the innovation challenge. You identify a problem statement, you do a test chip, make sure that your solution really meets the requirement. But in the AI compute space, this power and performance, everything really revolves around power and performance. And software is an integral part. It's a very important part of calibrating the power and performance. If you increase performance, power is going to get worse. So what is the right balance you strike on this seesaw of power and performance? And modeling the workloads ahead of time is extremely crucial, so that you have fairly accurate performance as well as power predictions before you actually build your RTL. And that's where yesterday I got to hear Circuit Sutra talking about ESL methodologies, and I found it very well resonating with the needs of the chip design startups in this particular space. Because before we'll go build the RTL, we'll do spreadsheet-based analysis, or we'll do some power theater, some other methods to kind of do a rough. Now we can't afford 10% estimation mistake. And it's so crucial that you get it in a single digit error margin. And without use of ESL methodologies to model out your design, ensuring that software is deployed sufficiently on a co-simulation, and you have an accurate analysis of power and performance, and you know that you have hit it right, that's when you actually start the RTL, or at least that's when you get ready to go further in the RTL. But one bigger problem that AI compute, particularly in the in-compute memory space, is a design for test. And this is something that is probably often not talked about. So in a design for test space, what we have seen and experienced is, ultimately you produce your revenues from selling the product. And these chips or the chiplets are so big, the yield is low as is. And on top of it, especially when you are in the in-memory compute, now the memory fault models that we have used traditionally, which are the coupling faults and neighborhood pattern sensitive faults and so on, they are not valid as is, because now the structure that you have developed is not truly a memory. And random logic fault models, which we have been used to using stuck-at fault models, transition fault models, or cell-aware ATPG, those fault models are also not accurately going to correlate to the in-memory compute. So particularly those startups or bigger companies that are into in-memory compute, the fault modeling for the in-memory compute, I think is a brand new topic we have not been able to solve. We saw quite a bit of papers at ITC earlier. We have seen few universities also, but if there is a faculty here that has DFT as an interest, this is really a very, I think it's a need of the hour, because how do you predict yield? And yield is low as is, how do you prevent escapes? And unless you have the right fault models for the memory, not the memory and the random logic, but something that combines both, right? How do you really do the ATPG or the memory best? So to us, I think the productization using the right kind of fault modeling is what we see as the next frontier to succeed, beyond building the chip and developing a software and at least getting to the deployment. How do you prevent escapes getting into customer hands, right? So this is one aspect of the technical challenge that we are dealing with. We do have quite a bit of further to cover here, but we wanted to change context a little bit, and we wanted to take few questions from the audience for our esteemed panel here. So on any front, whether the business, fundraising, technical, if there is anybody from the audience who would like to, please just raise your hand and we can address your questions first before we go through our pre-calibrated narrative. So if there is anybody out there, just please raise your hand and we can address your questions. Please, sir, go ahead. And you can ask a question directly. Please identify yourself, your company, your affiliation, and who the question is for.
So myself Bipin Bandekar. I, I belong to software solutions team from Blaze.
Louder, please.
Yeah, can you keep it near?
Okay. Okay, thanks. Good. No, thank you. So I belong to Blaze. My name is Bipin Bandekar. So how are your companies addressing the edge solutions for generative AI? Each of your companies.
Sure. So Durga, shall we start with you? How do we address the edge computing solution?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Seema.
Sure. The way we at SEMA now we're addressing is on two folds. Number one is the way we have architected our system, our SOC, right? With the heterogeneous architecture. And number two is with our software framework, that is software platform palette, that takes the complete product life cycle. And thereby, when we're combining these two, that will really make the customer frictionless to move from IoT devices to an AIoT devices. At the same time, not compromising on another two key elements. Number one, the accuracy part of it. Number two, the future proof. Because since the AI is evolving and it is changing rapidly, as applications are also evolving, so we need to have a future-proof system. That's why this combination of the software and hardware, a software-centric, purpose-built SOC approach is creating a platform for the customer to get the good customer experience at the edge.
Thank you. This question is for each one. So would you like to go next?
So question is from Blaze, where I'll still answer the question. So at Blaze, right, like we are looking at the next generation of workloads which are getting adopted now, not just generative AI, but LLMs and other aspects. So the platform that we have already solves most of the problem to some extent, and then the question comes really, right, when you have a new type of workloads and new challenges, like how efficient you are or how power efficient, and then the performance efficient you are, right? Like we are trying to solve those challenges internally in our next generations, and we are working on that, and can't really get into the technical details, but then as Durga said, right, like a customer-centric approach for your product where everything is available, like multi-model we are talking about, like wherein Blaze as well has an SOC wherein you can feed an input to an audio, video, text, or a remote camera, like multiple. So if you have a full built, properly sophisticated SOC is the way to go to solve all these next generation of problems where you get your inputs through multiple sources and multiple sensors.
Thank you. So at D-Matrix, we don't have a solution. We are focused on the cloud and data center space. So I take fifth to be able to answer the question. So with that, I would like to request Venu. I know you.
Yeah. Our approach is also pretty much the same. So what we have done is built a software platform which makes it very easy for any developer to use our hardware without having to know much about the hardware. For example, I have already mentioned that we have our own instruction set. Now, if you have an AI model, how do I write my AI model using your instruction set so that it runs on your hardware? That is a natural question. So this is where we try to address this problem by building some software primitives, which is like a firmware running on our processor, and also providing tools like, for example, model converter. So it does not matter what your model is, we are agnostic to the model. It could be a CNN for vision analytics, or it could be generative AI, it could be a natural language model, like, BERT and GPT and so on. Any model, whatever AI platform on which you build. It could be TensorFlow, it could be Keras, or it could be ONNX. We provide a tool to convert that into a suitable format and then run it on our hardware accelerator. So with this tool and the other APIs, etc., we build, you can easily build an application for any application using any model without having to know much about the hardware and its instruction set and build your application. So for a developer, it becomes very simple because of this software platform we provide along with our hardware to deploy any model on this hardware and get the maximum benefit of the acceleration that our hardware provides.
Thank you, Anu. So one of the curiosity that we were discussing among ourselves earlier today is we are all small band of warriors, small startups strapped with resources, funds, whatnot, and we are actually going against the big wigs of the Intels and AMDs and Nvidias and so on, and what the hell are we thinking, right? Sometimes you wonder. I mean, you're bucking the horse, you're bucking the trend, you want to really produce the next generation technology. And then you look at, you just look at the building from outside and you wonder that, I could fit thousands of my teams here, if I just even, if I could, right? So there's a huge gap between what is available with startups versus what's available with already well-established businesses. And yet, so many startups are really taking upon this challenge to build something unique, you build something different. And for a startup, and for any business for that matter, right? Innovation is only just that. Unless you succeed in the revenue, you don't really have an existence. So I'm kind of curious, we shared our perspectives, but I'm interested to see if you could, this David versus Goliath, right? We are kind of collaborators in some way, being in startups. We are also competition in some other way because we all have to succeed, and the startup success rate is pretty low, right? So I would just like to request, starting from Venu and working this way, about what gives you that juice every morning to say I'm going to go beat Nvidia and make my mark in this industry.
Well, for you to be able to say that your product matches, if not beats, whatever is already there in the market, you have to prove that first. Now, that's a big challenge. As I said initially, you have to overcome that problem. Our thinking and approach is the following. If you are not able to fight with the gorilla, ride the gorilla. You get onto that. So we try to provide a solution first using FPGAs. FPGAs are actually, if you talk about AI, after GPUs, now FPGAs are there in the market. So we use them. We use the FPGA, we ride on FPGAs, we put our solution on FPGAs and try to prove. And once that stage is successful, then we can do an ASIC and tell, hey, there is something even better. So once we prove ourselves, that's our approach of, fighting with these giants in this market.
Thank you. How much, sir?
So one thing, right, in the context of comparing with the big companies, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but the established companies, they can sell mediocre products. And for a startup, unless you are like pitch perfect, you won't be able to productize your product or take it into masses and generate revenue, right? And that's what has to be your concentration, where generation on generation, if NVIDIA is doubling their capacity, halving their power consumption, and then the startups have to think, when you are thinking in multiple generations, you need to think in terms of 10x. So otherwise, you are not going to be able to compete with them. And the software game, right, like where they have huge teams, as you said, like we can't even compare when you talk from the startup perspective. And then, as somebody was saying, right, like the EDA is a mafia. So even here, right, like there are consortiums that are driven by the big companies, and they get an early access to the spec and then the definitions, and the day one they have a support for a new framework, new version, and the startups still struggle. So that's where you'll have to very quickly adapt to the changing environment when it comes to the application level or the user adoption level. Those are the challenges that we have to really concentrate if we have to hit head on with the big players.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Great perspective.
I think from my viewpoint of view, right, it's necessity is the mother of invention, they say, right? Big companies that they're already successful, they have their main products going on, right? But if you need to bring out a new technology or a new problem you're trying to solve, that requires a different mindset. So that means you need to have the necessity to make it happen. And also startups, my world, it's really life to a meaning. We are giving a meaning to your life. You actually wake up in the morning, you actually figure out, hey, now we are really solving the real problem that a customer is facing and how we are going to address that, right? So that's the way the innovation thrive happens and the results will automatically come. So at my company, we did the same thing, because since it is a big market, we carved out our own space, performance per watt. So then that space, how do we really make an impact? So that's how the SEMA has actually formed, and then it demonstrated results in that space.
Thank you so much. So at D-Matrix, we kind of look the other way. We know that there is a huge competition out there, but there is also a huge TAM. And the companies that can build the technology with a differentiation, and most probably, and put a good working solution in a power and performance envelope, there is space for, so execution is the key. I think if we can get the software first approach, build the right hardware architecture, ensure that power and performance is well balanced before you tape out. And then once the silicon comes back, you got a good strategy to ensure good yield. I think there are customers out there in this large space who would at least want to give it a shot. And if you build a really good solution, then giving us a shot would result into a larger revenue funnel. And so I think we are kind of staying humble. We are staying paranoid and just focusing on execution. Getting up every morning with an excitement to build a technology, whether we succeed or fail. I think that's usually a fate and macroeconomic and whatnot, right? So I think our focus is to build something that we are really excited about and see if market will respond to what we are building, if we've done our job well. Thank you. So with that, I think we are beyond the timeout. If there is any last question from audience, we can entertain quickly. Otherwise, we can call the session. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, myself Satya, I'm from Intel. Some of the questions are already answered, but I have a very generic question. So far we have only few architecture like x86 home and a little bit of other sort. And for last 1 decade, 2 decades, we still have struggle in running OS or any drivers from one architecture to another architecture. So I've seen many these AI accelerators coming into play, and the software is moving in the fast pace. Like algorithms are maturing, new algorithms are coming, and they keep changing year on year, right? So how we are prepared to beat the fast pace of the software or algorithmic changes with the different set of companies are doing a different accelerators or with the different architectures, right? So is there any common platform where you can unify that every developer, the software developer can come forward and put their developments in place where the final use of it, the hardware guys can leverage and build a stronger and faster systems to meet the market needs? Thank you.
Yeah. See, this is precisely what we thought when we built an architecture. So in our processor, while it gives extreme high performance like a custom ASIC, but there is nothing hardwired there about a particular model or a particular algorithm. So the instructions of our processor are very common instructions like you would have in a CPU. Okay. Once you have a processor which is able to give you performance, but it's completely programmable like a CPU, then it becomes very easy. I mean, it doesn't matter, tomorrow you have a new architecture, new algorithm, it really doesn't matter, it runs on the processor. So our approach is to see to that there is nothing about a particular algorithm or a particular model hardwired into our processor. That's our approach.
So, if I understand your question right, like you are talking about the standardization of how these applications are written. So, my understanding, they are already standardized. That's what I was talking about just a while ago. But they are being defined by big companies right now. I think TensorFlow, Keras, Onyx. These are all the formats that you can mention, model your AI models. And then right now, most companies are supporting all of those frameworks where you can seamlessly migrate. The only problem that we see, especially with the startups, is how fast you can adapt to 100% of that model, where it's going to be a big challenge with things changing every single day and every new. So whatever the frameworks we have today may not work tomorrow, and then there might be another set of frameworks that is coming out. So that's still going to be a problem that the companies have to continue to solve. But I am sure that there is some level of standardization is happening at the model description level.
Yes, sorry. 2 points I want to add. One is from a standardization point of view, for different models, to support different models. There are some consortiums, like for example, TVM is one, right? So we actually support that particular compiler. So that will take care of some of these models. And then from a interface point of view, as long as your accelerators are sticking to some of the common interfaces and the common APIs, that is done by different consortium. Like for example, if you're supporting ROS community, there is a standardization involved. Suppose if you're providing the regular video streaming tools like T-Streamer and others, there are certain type of APIs. So as long as you actually adhere to those standards and then the common APIs, I think it should be fine.
Thank you. So on that note, we started this panel saying we'll focus on hardware, and we're ending with software being the key ingredient. So life is a full circle, right? So thank you for your time. With that, we end today's panel.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Pradeep Thakurji to felicitate the esteemed panelists. May I request Shri Vedji to felicitate Shri Pradeep Thakurji?
What's your reflection? Find your direction. Find your direction. What's your reflection? Find your direction.
Thank you. Now have the privilege of requesting our last keynote speaker of AI Summit 3rd edition, Shri Santosh Kumarji. Please join your hands together for Shri Santosh Kumarji, VP and Head Semiconductor Manufacturing, Reliance Jio, to come on the stage and share insights on generative AI and the opportunities for semiconductor supply chain.
And like what are the opportunities for the semiconductor supply chain over there. And so since yesterday I think there are a lot of discussion about the generative AI, mainly from the software or modeling and all those point of view. So I will mainly focus on, what opportunities, additional opportunities this will bring in the manufacturing, like from the foundry or even the device, but we'll focus a little bit more on the packaging advanced side. Okay, so, you have seen, recently in last, like 1.5, 2 years, there is huge hype about this generative AI. And so will this momentum sustain? I think everyone will believe that this momentum will sustain, because that's why, we are here for 2 days. And it is, going very, very exponentially, and because of a lot of, factors coming together. So we see this open AI and chat GPT, because of this, it is very, very rapidly gaining traction and penetration. And also, it happened because of, we have the, that kind of the very, very powerful hardwares available, particularly, GPU accelerators, example, NVIDIA A100 or H100, GPU modules, which, help to train the very, very large, LLMs. And also, we see the emergence of the large generative AI software tools, which accelerate the development and also population of the models. And also, we see, there is a kind of the race going on between the different AI ecosystems and the different, hyperscalers, behind it. So we have seen that Microsoft, it's aligned with the OpenAI, and then Google has their own, BARD ecosystem. Along with it, we see also the Chinese, companies like Tencent or Baidu or even Alibaba. They have their own, this different AI ecosystems, generative AI ecosystems, and also provide the, the compute and cloud services behind it. And a lot of applications, and a lot of audience talk about different applications of this. And also, we see, not only one platform, but multiple, generative AI ecosystem are ramping up fast. These are, evidence, and I mentioned like DALL-E and BARD, Bing, TikTok, Alibaba. And also, we see very, very strong, supply chain inflecting point, So even though the overall semiconductor market is, down this year, but we see from the TSMC, especially from their earning calls, so especially their, high performance computing and AI, that business is up. And one of the key factors is because of the huge demand of this NVIDIA, H100 and A100s, and also a lot coming from the China, but, from the rest of the world also. And then also we have seen the performance of the NVIDIA. Broadcom, I was, listening to their investors call, and then they say that, because of this generative AI, they had, 20-25% more revenue because of that. And then from these different memory IDMs, especially who are this high bandwidth memory, we see, huge intake of these memories. So as you know, this generative AI, they, requires, more and more performance. We need, huge, neural networks. And if you can see, in terms of the difference from, 2018 to, 2020, 20 plus. So it's almost exponential, And in terms of the total training compute as well as the memory, so it's, ChatGPT-3, it was using, 175 billion parameters, and ChatGPT-4, it is using, more than, trillion parameters. So there is, huge compute requirement as well as the memory requirement in this. And also, we are seeing these opportunities, for the training and inference, coming from the different opportunities. So whether, training and inference is in the cloud, so there they have, no latency issues, no data control, and, technology on the edge, like if not ready, then we will use, like training and inference in the cloud. Mainly we see the AI in the audio, audio AI, basically Cortana, like Siri and Alexa, using this kind of model. And then we have, like the training on the cloud, and then the inference on the edge. Because then, like for the cloud, training, and for the inference, there are, like different kind of, like hardware requirement in terms of, like compute requirement. For the training, we need, like a lot of parallel processing. So we need a lot of GPUs, like FPGAs, AI accelerators, also specific ASICs. But for the inference, we can, some like NVIDIA is also using their, like GPUs, but we can also use the CPUs over there. And I think Intel Sapphire Rapids, that CPU is, like used. And along with the DDR5 memory we can use over there. And then another is, like training and inference on the edge. So, like when, like we have training or inference going on the edge, then edge is, like then there is also, like you can say, let's say smartphone. The smartphone also have, their own, like hardware, like application processor, SoC over there. So currently they already have, I think, AI accelerator, like built in there, So in the future, we will see, like if this, like a lot of this inference moving to the edge, then there also we need, like more and more compute requirement, and that will also drive the demand for the different, like processors, LVL memory. So if we look at the, like overall semiconductor supply chain, so we can start with, like design, and then go to, like chip manufacturing, like foundry, and then go to the OSATs, as well as go down the line to the, like substrate, packaging systems, as well as the end customers. And so we can see, you can see, like some of the key players who are, like involved in this, and especially for here, the lot of the AMD or, like Intel, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and then also we have, like different memory companies, and memory is also, like very, very important, and we will talk later. And there was, like just before we had, like this panel presentation where we see that also, like compute in the memory, that is also, like coming. And then we have, like this interposer. So interposer, it is, like kind of the very advanced packaging. And so if you look at, I was listening to the TSMC CEO, like investors call, and they said that, there was huge demand of this NVIDIA, like hardware, GPU hardware. And he said the bottleneck was not the, like the chip processing, that they are doing it, The bottleneck was their packaging capabilities. So they were using, like CoWoS packaging over there, chip on wafer on substrate, which I will show later. And then they don't have that sufficient, like capacity over there. And then they have to, like put additional 3 times, 4 times capacity, and it still doesn't, like make the demand. And then they have to outsource it to some of the part. They have to outsource it to their OSAT partner, like ASE or, like Amcor, and spill over there, So I was, like put this data. If you look at only because of the generative AI, what are the additional kind of the upside trend in the sales of this hardware. So we see, like for the GPUs, it will be, like make more sense. We can get, like almost, like 50% more, like sales because of this generative AI. And for the CPU, it is still, like used in the CPU, used in the AI server, also for the generative AI. So the GPU will do the main compute, then we offload it to, like task to the CPU over there. And so if you look at the generative AI, it is, like basically they are training the series of the neural networks called the foundational models, And this is, like for the bigger application, we need, like more and more neural networks. Then when we use more and more, we need more and more compute power, and more compute power and more memory, and then it will drive all those, the demand of the different, and the accelerators along with, like CPUs and the memory. So for the memory, if you see, so HBM, high bandwidth memory. So high bandwidth memory, it has, low latency, high bandwidth. At the same time, it consumes low power, compared with, like if you have GDDR5 or GDDRX or this DDR5. So that is the key memory which is used in this NVIDIA chipsets, and for both the H100 and the A100. And also the Samsung is now, like looking to bring the memory, compute in the memory for this HBM3, extension E, like next model. And so for inference, I think HBM may not be needed. You can also, like work with the GDDR, is, can do, but, like NVIDIA is still using, even for that, the high bandwidth memory. So if you look at overall, it's very costly, like HBM memory is very costly. And now, like currently, if you look at the HBM3, like it can, like go to, like even the 12 high stack, and it is 8 is, like common, but sometime it go to, like 12. So it is the 12 die stacked over each other, and then connected via the TSV and the micro bump over there. So the yield and all those things is also very, very concerned over there. And it can give you, the one stack will give you the capacity of, like 24 gigabyte, and bandwidth of, like 800, around 820 gigabyte per second. So currently, we see the generative AI that is, like driving the demand of this high bandwidth memory. And there is only two vendor currently, it's SK Hynix and the Samsung. So Micron has recently qualified for, HBM3. So they will also come over there. Other than that, like there is no any, I think the Chinese companies, they try to, like come into this, but I think not very successful. So if you look at the compute infrastructure for the generative AI, so who is, like the main investment doing? So it's the mainly, like cloud service providers. So we have the Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and the NVIDIA. And if you look at the value chain, like breakdown over here, so we have, like compute hardware and software, accelerators, memory, and, like server CPUs, which is also, like we used for optimized model training and inference workloads. And then these are, like used by the cloud service providers to make the system, and for the compute infrastructure and the software. And then, like it will be, like directly the end-to-end application, to the end user, like for example, end user facing application with the proprietary models, or then, like using the different models, and then, like we have applications like GitHub, Copilot, and Jasper, and it is for B2B or B2C, to the end customer, So this is the, like generative AI value chain over there. So other than that, other hyperscalers are also, like investing in this. This Facebook, they are also, like they indicated that they will use the generative AI for the advertising. And this is the AI server, the supply chain over there. And we have seen, like currently the ODMs based in the Taiwan, they had, like very good year this, and it's mainly attributed to the, like generative AI. And if you look at, like, but it is mainly, I think, that the NVIDIA, that is, like taking it. So whoever is in their supply chain, like from foundry, it is TSMC, then GPU module. So packaged by TSMC, but, like the whole module, it is assembled by the, like Foxconn, and then the cooling thing, and then we have the baseboard and server. And then the customer is, like cloud service providers, and then enterprise, and also the channel partners, and then they outsource this manufacturing to the, ODMs, especially, like Quanta and Honhai, and they all are, like they have, like because of this generative AI, they have shown, like 10 to 20% increase in their business. And here we can see this, like air server, the ODM supply chain. So from the GPU module, and it actually is a similar thing, the different players. So I mean to say that, this, because of this generative AI, so there is, like everyone is in the supply chain, and, like kind of getting the opportunity. And we have, evidence of it, and in going further, we will see, more and more business. So if we compute overall, business, it will go more than $100 billion opportunity in, in coming year, coming 2 year, it will generate. Yes. But, apart from all these things, I think for the IC packaging, this is the very, very huge opportunity, because of this generative AI. So if you look at this chat GPT, they use, a lot of trillions of, neural networks. They need, lot of compute power, and that, compute power, the GPUs and all those, it will, also, have need lot of memory over there. And so you need, more and more, transistors over there. You need more and more big die. So what industry was doing, they keep following the Moore's law. They keep making big and big die. But now they hit the limit. They hit the, reticle limit. So you cannot manufacture big and big die. And also the more big the die is, less is your yield over there. And so also, not only this, you also need, very, very high memory bandwidth, So what is the solution over there? The solution is, from the, monolithic SoC, we go to, kind of the, we can say, virtual SoC. So here, we have the different, functional block over there, memory, let's say cache memory, or, CPU cores, IOs, analog ports, and all those. We we do the disaggregation, and we don't need, in SoC, you have to, do everything at, let's say 7 nanometer or 3 nanometer. But when we do, this disaggregation, so we don't need, let's say IO core. That we can do at even, 16 nanometer or, 22 nanometer. Analog we can do even at, 65. And then we can, aggregate it on the package platform using the different, advanced packaging technologies. And so using this, the chiplet approach, what it will do, it will, you can make the virtual SoC more big. You can put, lot of compute over there. And you can, reduce the time to market, reduce your R&D time. And this is, because of this trend coming, so you can see, number of cores are increasing, and typical power is now in almost, kind of going flat. Transistor is increasing. But if you see the manufacturing cost, so up to, I think, 14 nanometer, 10 nanometer, it was, going down per million transistor. After that, the cost, started to rise, and also because of the manufacturing as well as the design cost. Okay, so this is the chiplet-based integration. So, with this aggregation of this SoC, make, all those functional block as an individual die, and then we can connect it using the, the different, advanced packaging technologies. But then, it has its own issue, standards. But now we have a lot of different, UCIe platform, which is, looking for the industry standards. And it has, when we do using this, then currently, for the monolithic die, scaling is becoming very, very costly. And also, number of tape outs, it is equal to number of the product configuration. But we have, when you have the different chiplets optimized for their, node tested and all those, then you can mix and match, and you can have, more products compared to the less tape outs over there. It has, will be addressed by the chiplets. And so it is also not new. So a lot of, product is in the market. So Intel, all those chips, AMD, Apple, so this M1 Ultra also, if you see, this is, the two die, connected over there, then Amazon and Tesla and others. Yes. This is, there are a lot of different kind of packaging technology over there, but if we plot in terms of the IO density, IO per millimeter square, and, IO pitch, then, whatever the technologies, falling over there from the fan out, flip chip, micro bump, embedded, hybrid, and all those, they are, currently being used by the different, companies to, package the chiplets using all these, So in terms, we can go to, greater than 16, IOs per millimeter square. and IO pitch, to be less than 130, but currently, like if you look the roadmap, it will go up to, like 10, 20, like micrometer pitch. And this is, I think, like very, very important slide over there, So currently, if you look, like all the innovation in the packaging is like happening around this, So this is, like we have the PCB board, this is the IC substrate, and this is 2.5D interposer. So this is actually made up of the silicon interposer, and that is the back end of the line process you do over there. And then on there you put, like CPUs or GPUs or, like FPGAs or other, like compute, and then you put the high bandwidth memory over there. So this is actually the shape of this NVIDIA, like A100 or H100. If, like do the cross section, it will be like that. So the innovation is, like where innovation is happening and where also, like I can see, like in coming days, India will also play a role, So this, like this, the OSATs cannot make it, this you have to make it in the fab, So of course it is, like very, very costly, because it uses the fab process. And also, like if you look at this, like this also you cannot, like keep increasing the size, because since you are doing back end of the line over there, so you have the reticle limit over there. But let's say if you have to use, like four of this compute die and maybe, like 8 of this HBM, then this will become the bottleneck, So what is the innovation happening that, okay, like can we, like, let's say, replace it with the, like organic process, RDL process over there. Or maybe, like we can, like take the big, let's say, like this, take this IC substrate, and then, like no need to put this big, because here is the connection is just between here and here, like you have this, like processor as well as the HBM. So how this is connected, so because signal, like is passing, not directly passing, but it moves through, like 2.5D, 2.5 interposer. So if we do, like this IC substrate in terms of line in space, currently it is, I think, 8 by 8 or 10 by 10. This 2.5 interposer is, like sub-micron, like 1 micron and less, If we can, like make it more and more advanced and put this IC substrate from here to here, make the thin film technology, and let's say, like break this, like small, like interposer into the bridge, and then we can embed it, and just put it here so that this will connect, So that is already, like done by the Intel and, like other companies are also, like doing it. So my mean to say is that, like it is all the innovation is, like around this and this is going on. And this is, like the TSMC, they are leading this stack over there. And so this is the technology I mentioned, which is, like currently their CoWoS, like filter interposer. Now what they are doing, they are making, like this RDL interposer. So RDL interposer is, like thin film, organic. So it is, like the PI, dielectric along with, like copper plated over there. So it is, like much cheaper compared to silicon interposer. You can also make it more big, and then you can assemble, like multiple SoCs and the HBM, and then put the PCB substrate. And then they are also, like looking for this, like CoWoS LSI. So here what they are doing, so they are doing, like this, putting this organic, like substrate, something this, they moved it over here. And then they are, like they have this silicon bridge, like they divide it and put it over there, almost finished. And same, like Samsung is also doing, like they have the different architecture if you look at it here. And Intel also, they have, so different. So these are the 3 companies who are leading the innovation in this, like packaging. And one of the key, like driver is, like this generative AI. And we will see more, like momentum in the coming years. With that, like I conclude my presentation. Yeah, thank you very much again. Yeah.
May I now request Sri Hariom Pandeji to present memento to Sri Santosh Kumar.
What's your reflection? What's your reflection? Find your direction.
Thank you. And now may we have the privilege of requesting Colonel Anurag Avasthi, Vice President IESA, to come over to the stage and address the delegates. Please join your hands together for Colonel Anurag Avasthi. Thank you.
Hardly any audience here. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, okay. I think last session of the day, probably. So it's not any keynote, I think it is all wrapping up session. So most of you have been here for 2 days and endured yourself here. So I will take precisely 8 minutes to explain to you what is happening in this entire sphere as we speak insofar as AI Summit is concerned and semiconductors is concerned. As Vice President of IESA, I stay in Delhi. I look after all policy, all government initiatives, all international collaborations, and all corporate relations. So these 4 verticals are what I handle there. And in terms of policy space, there's a large amount of traction which is happening as we speak today. You are all aware what PLI is, what DLI is. There's a lot of chips to startup which has come into being. There are a lot of chip-in centers which are coming into being, and there's going to be a very, very important semiconductor research center which will now take place very soon. There are 2 nano fabs in IIT Bombay as well as in IISc Bangalore. Possibly there are 3 more on the anvil as we speak today. So insofar as this is concerned, there's a large amount of traction in policy space in Delhi which is happening, including silicon carbide and GaN. So just to give you a case in point, there's a large policy intervention which is taking place, and IESA is giving a large amount of inputs in terms of the next PLI 2.0 as well as SPECS 2.0, which will benefit the component manufacturers and manufacturers of future AI chips tremendously. So this is insofar as the policy metrics is concerned. The second thing is that we are now revising the semiconductor supply chain. You know, a lot of people may not know this, but the Indian chemical industry is in good shape. It is 6th largest in the world. It contributes 8% to the Indian GDP. A lot of people don't understand that. So the only system now to do things is to change that metrics of parts per million to parts per billion and make it semiconductor grade and chip grade. So there's a work in progress there as well in Delhi and elsewhere. So as time goes by, you will be more informed insofar as the supply chain is concerned, including the types of chemicals, the types of materials, the changing of supply chains of rare earths as and when they happen, because all these are very, very critical to your entire key value system. So a lot of things are happening in this space as well. The third one and most important as we speak today is the international collaborations. Now in international collaboration space, there will be a large amount of connects in this domain, including generative AI with the United States and Japan. On Friday, there's the first policy dialogue between India and Japan, in which I will be attending in on behalf of IESA and presenting our point of view. In addition to that, there's a large amount of connects which are happening from B2B and B2C as well, with Taiwan, with the Netherlands, with Korea, and we've just inked the MOU with Korea in IESA, and more importantly now with the United States. There is something on the cards with Singapore, but a lot of things are going to be taking place insofar as this is concerned. So all of you must understand that in the overall policy metrics, whether it is the government of India, whether they are state governments, whether it is IESA or whether all of you are there, I seek a huge amount of inputs from the industry, including all of you. So thereby I articulate all those views and then give it to the government. So suffice for you to understand that. The main bugbear which everyone is getting stuck now is, and I implore upon all of you, your all industry leaders, is to harness talent. Talent is going to be a very major problem. Very, very major problem. If you read the new policy which has come in, it says 85,000 people in the next 5 years. that 85,000, I don't know where that number has come from. I have no idea. Somebody has put a number to it. Fine, so be it. But the problem at hand is that the famous Indian hangover of 4 decades of software has to go away. Computer science engineering, I'm not offending anybody, but that has to go away. So a large amount of things are happening in that space also. Insofar as the NCVT is concerned, we are looking at all 4 tiers now. We are looking at tiers for skilling people which is below the undergraduate level by re-energizing ITIs, by infusing more courses, by the IESA as well as various other things. The undergraduate level, you are all aware, the AICT has changed syllabus and put in VLSI design. The post-grad level, which is a work in progress, and the doctoral level, we are not bothered as we speak today. That will happen as and when it happens. So there is a lot of problem here in this domain. Now the problem doesn't end here. The problem is, where is the faculty? And that is where, ladies and gentlemen, you will come in. As time goes by, it is my personal endeavor that I will get people from the industry and make them professors of practice. Because you can't produce faculty overnight, insofar as this critical domain is concerned. So that's also a work in progress. So I thought I must tell you all of these things, then to speak some great things about, keynote address and all of that. The last point is startups. There is a METI startup hub in Delhi. In addition to that, there are EMCs. Kindly go through this, especially the startups. I saw a lot of them there. All of you would bear me out. Srinivas was there in Bangalore the other time for the space tronics and deftronics also. We saw brilliant minds. But the problem is they get stuck insofar as the funding is concerned, and then they get stuck in periodic fundings. So that is being mitigated, at least at a policy level. But there are some glitches, but they will be sorted out as time goes by. So all of you must join the hardware startup program. Pradeep is here. I think he's championing the entire cause. I think, please give him a big hand. I think he's doing a fantastic job insofar as this is concerned from IESA. And we are really proud of him. So, these are the important things which really need to be understood. As time is at premium and the tea is getting cold, all I will say is, may the force be with you. And we are very, very grateful to the Hyderabad chapter and Telangana chapter of IESA for getting this organized and getting it done so beautifully. I think it has a large amount of traction in the national media. We'll ensure, and this is the most important part, is the last 2 episodes of this, or the last 2 versions of this were online because of the COVID. Now to change from the online version to an offline version at this scale itself is very, very commendable. So please put your hands together for all these gentlemen. I think they've done a fantastic job. IESA is always available for all of you to help you out whichever way we can by the government connects, whether it is the academic connect, whether it is the industry connect, or whether it is a societal connect. With that thought, I will leave you all to enjoy a good hot cup of tea. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for those words of encouragement. May I now request Shri Srinivas Rajuji to come over and felicitate Colonel Anurag Avasthi ji. Thank you. Now with this, we have come to the closure. In few minutes, it will be done. May I now request Shri Balpreet Singh ji, Director of Engineering at Intel and IESA AI Summit Hyderabad Chapter Core Committee member, to extend valedictory address.
Good evening, everyone. I think Colonel Avasthi really helped me do my job. I thought I'll have to wake everyone up, and he did charge you up with his confident speech and has given us all a lot of ARs as well to make sure that we carry this journey forward. So thanks for all of you being here. I just want to acknowledge all the effort that has gone in bringing this event to all of you. So hope you all had a very insightful, enriching, and learning experience in last 2 days of the IESA AI Summit 2023. We have had a good spread of topics covered, starting from the EDA tools for silicon design, from Synopsys, Cadence, choice of architecture for AI, AMD, NVIDIA got covered, perspective of hyperscalers, we had the likes of the Google and Microsoft and Amazon also sharing what is latest and greatest in that field, and looking at application areas. Like we focus on automotive, we focus on healthcare, we got a lot of good insights from speakers in those domains. And finally closing with sessions on research, startups, and academia. So in total, in the last 2 days, we've had 31 sessions, 60 plus speakers, and 400 delegates. Really amazing effort. So after the last 2 days packed with all aspects of AI, ML, and generative AI, I feel we can easily rebrand ourselves as Gen AI, which is Generation AI. So next time anyone asks you which gen you belong, you are the Gen AI. Okay? So answer to this, who are you, which generation you belong to? We are Gen AI. Great. So I'd like to thank all of you for honoring us with your presence and giving us an opportunity to organize this memorable event with your support. I would like to begin by thanking our esteemed guests, Chief Guest Sri Jayesh Ranjanji, Principal Secretary, Department of Information Technology, Electronics and Communication of Government of Telangana, the guest of honor, Sri Anshuman Tripathi ji, Member, National Security Advisory Board, esteemed guests, Mr. Srinivas Chari from Dell, Mr. Krishnamurthy, and Shashi Reddy ji. We feel privileged to have them at the conference and get this support. It goes without saying that today's event would not have been possible without the words of wisdom we got to hear from our renowned speakers and panelists. Thanks to them for taking the time out from the busy schedules and sharing their perspective on generative AI. They made this event memorable for all of us. Next, I would like to thank the sponsors, the exhibitors for the trust and support to enable this conference. I would like to call out the support we got from our Silicon, Platinum, and Gold sponsors, namely Government of Telangana, Dell, Qualcomm, AMD, and Soliton. Thanks also to Moschip, SEMA.ai, Innocential, Circuit Sutra, Lead SoC, Blue Yonder, SmartSoc, Bitsilica, Lendai, Institute of Engineering, STPI, and Tana Tech Biz for the continued support and confidence in us. You all played a critical part in enabling us. Looking forward to your continued support in the future conferences as well. Event of this scale would not have been possible without close collaboration and immense focus and effort from the organizing committee. I would like to thank the leadership of IESA Hyderabad chapter, Shashiji, Venkataji, Kamalji, Srinivas Veriji, for the vision and commitment to the event and support and encouragement, and also support and encouragement from the IESA headquarter team, namely Krishna ji, Colonel Anurag ji, Ved ji, Devendra ji, and the team. Round of applause for them. I especially want to call out the leadership we had from Srinivas Rajugaru. He has been a leading star for all of us, right from the concept, putting the core team together, managing all aspects of program execution, and ensuring the successful run of the event. The whole team came together to take care of planning, execution, and managing day-by-day activities. Thanks to all the volunteers as well who took time out from their daily work and helped us. Thank you very much. Finally, I would like to thank all the partner organization, Mark 7 for event planning and organization, Trident Hotel Management, and staff and media partners. Now I would like to call the complete organizing team to the stage, please. Can you please join us?
I think I take this opportunity to thank all the organizing committee members. I know it's just, I've been leading it, but I think without their support, this would not have happened. I think to start with, I would like to thank Balpreet, who's actually, I think, for the success of any conference, the key is putting together the right content, speakers, identifying. I think that's a huge task. I think give a big round of applause to Balpreet. And of course, the whole team who supported Balpreet, Sanjay ji, everybody, right? I mean, everybody helped. Balpreet, thank you. I know it's been last 15 days. I think most of his time is spent on working on planning, changing, scheduling, a lot of work. Thank you, Balpreet, for the support. And of course, sponsorship is the key for, doing event of this scale. I think Wade led this initiative, of course, supported by all the core committee members. I think the last surprise was from TD for bringing in Dell. Thank you. Thank you. So I think a lot of surprises this time is, though the team was smaller, now it's expanded after VLSI conference, a lot of key people from VLSI conference committee has joined this, especially Sanjay ji. And, TD has come in, and of course, LK got into it. And also, I would like to thank the committee which led this whole venue and logistics. Sujata, where is she? Is she okay? Oh, she's there, okay. She's always behind the scenes. And of course, support from IESA HQ team, Gautami to Anita, and all of them, work together to make sure this happened. And I think special mention of a couple of folks who were like last couple of days be on it. One is Satish, managing the registrations end to end. I mean, every single card, printing, allocating, along with the Smart SOC team. I think I should thank all the volunteers and the team from Smart SOCs for supporting the registration. And of course, Hariom, I think I told him, and I wouldn't have, in my last 1 year, Hariom, I would have never said, I would have called him so many times and said Hariom, okay? Right? And real support and help. And of course, my colleague Swami and Nishant for pitching in wherever required. I think they've been extending help. And of course, Mustaq for Marcom support. Right? And any event which is successful, I think it's ultimately the team. Okay? And one thing I can say, Hyderabad is an excellent team. Everyone has full-time things to do, but they spare a lot of time and they do it with passion, not like, additional task. Anytime you call, they're available. Okay, what to do? Let's work together. I think, and I think the initiative is again comes from leadership. I think I would say, Shashiji, thank you for this opportunity. And of course, Venkata and Srini, who started this conference, and we're all carrying that forward. And we would like to look at making this bigger next year with all your support. And kindly excuse me if I've missed out anybody's name. And Davenderji, as a part of the sponsorship team, okay? Thank you very much. And yeah, let's move on to Haiti. And I know it was late. I think overall, to say we have not missed a single session. Generally, out of 31 sessions, people come late. Not even a single session. Every speaker came. Everything went seamless. I think, Balpreet, all the credit goes to you. Thank you.